If one day the whole world turns against you and you die in injustice, how would you feel? And after all, if you get a chance to live again, but in a completely different body, would you choose to keep silent or stand up for revenge? Jun Kyung was an honest prosecutor who always believed in justice. He dedicated his youth to defending the law, trusting that the truth would ultimately prevail. But surprisingly, he becomes the pawn in a cruel conspiracy, and in just a moment, everything he built collapses completely. On that fateful day, when the authorities asked Jun Kyung to cover up a corrupt case, he outright refused. With his honest nature, he wouldn't accept injustice even once, but that integrity led him down a path to death. On a stormy night, Jun Kyung died in agony, only with a single wish. If only he had more time to start over. Just when he thought it was all over, he opened his eyes again to find himself in a hospital. At first, Jun Kyung thought that heaven had given him a second chance to take revenge, but very quickly he realized a shocking truth. The body he was in was not his own. You think it's all just a strange dream, even planning to do something reckless to end everything and return to reality. But at that moment, the original owner's parents suddenly appear, stopping your impulsive actions. Thanks to that, Jun Kyung gave up his negative thoughts. After a checkup, the doctor concluded that he was experiencing temporary amnesia. From then on, Jun Kyung learned the identity of his new body. Kim Seo-jin. Despite trying to explain that he was not Seo-jin, no one believed him. About 3 months later, Jun Kyung gradually got used to life in the new body, and it was then that he accidentally overheard the real news broadcast about himself, stating that prosecutor Jun Kyung was accused of harassing a female office worker and had committed suicide in an apartment building. The truth about his death was completely distorted by the public, so he accepted the reality that he would have to live a new life under Seo-jin's identity. A completely different life from the painful past he once experienced. Unlike Jun Kyung, Seo-jin has a wealthy and complete family. He said that Seo-jin's father was the person Jun Kyung hated the most, a man who disrespects the law and manipulates prosecutors with money, while Seo-jin's mother, Mrs. Mi-jong, is a refined woman, living in luxury, who always believes that money can solve everything. There is a younger brother named Jin-jong in the house who dreams of becoming a professional chef. A family that seems perfect but is completely unfamiliar to Jun Kyung. And even more strangely, Seo-jin is also an intern prosecutor, a graduate of Korea University. While interning, he suddenly fell from a high floor, causing Jun Kyung's soul to be swapped into that body. Realizing the second chance fate has given him, Jun Kyung vows that this time he will not let things end in tragedy as before. Now he has money, power, and a completely new identity, things he never had in his previous life. And he wants to use everything to achieve his only goal, revenge against the one who harmed him, director Yang Jun. Then the fateful moment arrives. Right at Seo-jin's house, Jun Kyung first encounters Yang Jun, the man who killed him in the previous life, who this time appears as Seo-jin's chasing uncle. A silent confrontation begins, and Jun Kyung's quest for revenge officially starts here. Today, Yang Jun, Seo-jin's uncle, and also the one who pushed him to death in his past life, suddenly appears to inquire about his condition. On the surface, he pretends to care, but his real goal is to gauge whether Seo-jin still has the strength to work after that hateful incident. Facing an enemy he cannot team up with, Jun Kyung must also hide his deep resentment. He forced a smile and replied that everything was fine and agreed to return to Seo-eun to work. However, throughout the conversation, Yang Jun kept asking repeatedly, "Do you remember anything about that day of the revenge?" As if trying to confirm something very important, the person picking up Seo-jin was Jun Hwan, Yang Jun's son. Along the way, they began talking about a case he was working on involving a high school teacher accused of inappropriate conduct with an underage student. Official records indicated that the teacher claimed the relationship was voluntary, while the student's family maintained that their daughter had been pressured and acted against her will. Jun Hwan wants to pursue charges of defamation, but Jun Kyung quickly realizes that approach will be hard to win. Using his experience as a seasoned prosecutor, he analyzes that the messages between the two indicate a romantic relationship, so proving coercion would be very weak. Instead, he proposed a completely different approach, using laws on abuse of relationship and fraud to carry out the wrongful act. Jun Kyung's sharp arguments left everyone in awe. He pointed out that a 40-year-old man deceived a minor girl, making her believe in false love while he already had a family. Yang Jun nodded in agreement that both options were reasonable, but his eyes clearly showed displeasure at seeing his son being overshadowed by Seo-jin. Then, Jun Kyung returned to the Gangwon prosecutor's office where Seo-jin once interned. He immediately sensed the heavy atmosphere there. This is where defeated prosecutors are pushed to, a place full of darkness and despair, and on his first day back, Jun Kyung was assigned a new case. A woman in her 40s, intoxicated, died on her way home in a traffic accident. The driver was driving within the speed limit, but the prosecution still wanted to prosecute, believing he was negligent. The driver insists it was an unavoidable accident that couldn't be prevented. In just a moment, Jun Kyung presented a very clear and reasonable expected sentence. In the settlement negotiations, the driver could receive probation, but if the victim's family continues to demand a harsher punishment, he is likely to face imprisonment. My argument was so smooth that even my superiors were surprised because they couldn't find any flaws. However, Jun Kyung was still criticized for drawing conclusions without personally investigating the scene, so he had to go to the accident site to examine it firsthand. There, as he bent down to pick up a broken glass shard, an unexpected, strange thing happened. In front of Jun Kyung, a black and white world unfolds like a film rewinding into the past. He sees the conversation inside the car, glimpses the shady deals over money and power. Fragments of memories gradually surface, making him realize his special ability to see the past when touching objects. But even with that power, the evidence gathered remains too scant. Jun Kyung could only vaguely sense that this incident was not as simple as it seemed on the surface, and that there might be a secret hidden behind it that everyone was trying to conceal. Today at the scene, it wasn't just Jun Kyung present, but also two fellow trainees, Ho Se-young and So-hee. From the moment they met, Ho Se-young deliberately provoked him, constantly making sarcastic remarks to attract So-hee's attention. Contrary to his expectations, he completely ignored their argument and quietly left to wait at the nearby coffee shop. So he began to suspect because Seo-jin's attitude at work suddenly changed completely. He is enthusiastic, sharp, and serious in a way that is hard to understand, quite different from the person she used to know, while Yo Se-young quietly calls Junhwan to report Seo-jin's strange behavior, making the atmosphere even more tense and suspicious. Meanwhile, Jun Kyung was busy pondering the relationship between Seo-jin and Jo Se-young. He sensed that there was definitely something unusual between the two of them. At that moment, an elderly woman passing by the scene took the opportunity to ask questions, and she said she knew both the victim and the driver because they all lived in the same neighborhood. From those accounts, Jun Kyung began to follow the clues about the relationship between the two people. He discovered that the victim and the driver actually knew each other beforehand, not just two strangers who happened to meet by chance. This made him even more suspicious, and he immediately asked the investigator to thoroughly check the driver's financial situation, especially debts and calls with the victim's sister. While waiting, Jun Kyung took the opportunity to review all the files on the woman who had passed away. She had been separated for 7 years, raising her 2 sons alone, and on the day of the accident she attended a company party at the restaurant where she worked. After the party, she walked home, as usual. Then tragedy struck on her familiar street. To be more certain, Jun Kyung visits the restaurant owner to verify the information. He says the party had been announced in advance, and the victim usually walked home late at night. Everything seemed very normal, but with his intuition, Jun Kyung felt there was more to the story. He continued investigating the victim's sister, Soo-jin, who was running a small pork belly shop in the market. Her business was struggling and drowning in debt because of her heavy load as a driver. These financial difficulties immediately caught Jun Kyung's attention, followed by the driver causing the accident. Dong-ik, who studied with Soo-jin, likely knew her beforehand because the school is very small. More notably, he was released from prison not long ago, owes 30 million won, and only moved to this area since August last year. All those details gradually weave together into a suspicious picture. And just when it seemed like the case was just an ordinary traffic accident, Jun Kyung uncovered a crucial piece of information. For the sake of his children's future, the victim had purchased a life insurance policy over a year ago with a payout of up to 1 billion won. What is remarkable is that the sole beneficiary is her sister, Soo-jin. Just this detail alone makes everything more complicated than ever. A seemingly simple traffic accident now begins to reveal the shadows of a carefully planned conspiracy, and Jun Kyung realizes that behind that death, there may be a dark secret no one wants to expose. Jun Kyung's rival in this case is Sang Jin, a lawyer from South Korea's top law firm. He's known for his overwhelming win rate, extensive political connections, and strong backing from the business elite. Just hearing his name is enough to make any prosecutor wary. As soon as he entered the interrogation room, Sang Jin immediately launched into a defense of his client, comparing the case to an unavoidable situation, like someone suddenly rushing out from an alley or a bicycle going against traffic on a sharp turn, cases where the driver simply didn't have enough time to react. And according to him, this case is exactly the same. But Jun Ki-hong was not easily defeated. He straightforwardly asked Dong-ik about the huge debt he was carrying. He zeroed in on a key point: Sang Jin's exorbitant legal fees. So how could a recently released prisoner with mounting debts afford to hire such a top lawyer? That question was not only aimed at Dong-ik but also a direct provocation to the opposing lawyer, and it didn't stop there. Jun Ki-hong continued to question about the relationship between Dong-ik and Soo-jin, the victim's sister. As soon as he heard that name, his face immediately paled. You also mentioned the life insurance contract with Soo-jin as the beneficiary, then coldly confirmed that this was not just a simple traffic accident. To support his argument, Jun Ki-hong presented crucial evidence. A footage from the day of the incident showing Dong-ik sitting in a cafe near the restaurant where the victim worked, to which Soo-jin immediately responded. Thinking that sitting in a coffee shop alone can't make someone a suspect, but Jun Ki-hong's determined attitude and cold stare make Soo-jin start to feel uneasy. He just turned to tell Dong-ik to stay completely silent and not to reveal any slip-ups, but things are starting to get out of control. Suddenly, Jun Ki-hong repeated exactly what was said during that secret exchange that day. 200 million is a bit low. Raise it to 300 million, including lawyer fees, and I will help you. Those words like a dagger stabbing straight into Dong-ik's psyche, making him tense up and sweat profusely as Jun Ki-hong quickly played another recording and posed a deadly question. Who did you call first after the accident? That simple but heavy question completely shattered Dong-ik's psychological defenses. He stammered that he called the police, then the insurance company, and then corrected himself to say he called 119. Immediately, Jun Ki-hong released the decisive footage. He pointed out that the black box recorded the call at 1:40 a.m., but the fire department's records show the call was received at 1:46 a.m. Those 6 unexplained minutes became an unexplainable anomaly. Jin tried to dismiss it, arguing that the black box clock could be wrong, making this reasoning too forced, but Jun Ki-hong was completely right. You continued to present evidence that after the first call, Dong-ik made another call immediately afterward, and then, with a confident tone, Jun Ki-hong delivers a shocking conclusion. That call wasn't for the police or for rescue, but for Soo-jin, the victim's sister. At that moment, the entire room fell into complete silence, and news of the interrogation quickly spread, leaving everyone present in stunned silence. An intern seemingly unknown completely outshines the top lawyer with sharp arguments, and from that moment on, the name Kim Sang-jin begins to be spoken with admiration. As he was led away in handcuffs, Dong-ik completely broke down, turning to scold the very lawyer he had paid for as the false composure vanished, leaving only a panicked criminal exposed and powerless in the face of an unrecoverable situation. Sang-jin immediately announced his withdrawal from the case, claiming he initially thought it was just a simple traffic violation. But before leaving, Sang-jin didn't forget to leave a cold threat. He warned Jun Ki-hong to watch his mouth, or he would find ways to ruin his career. That arrogant look immediately made Jun Ki-hong think of Jun, the person who once killed me, who also once acted arrogantly and looked down on others like that. From that moment on, I secretly decided that Sang-jin would become one of the targets that must be eliminated. After the tense interrogation, Myung-soo's superior invited Jun Ki-hong to celebrate, and his attitude towards him had completely changed, no longer suspicious as before. During the meal, Myung-soo brought important news. He confirmed that Sang-jin would definitely come back and see this lawsuit through to the end. As expected. Sang-jin's side quickly found themselves on the defensive, as news of his failure was published by the reporters, and obviously behind it was Myung-soo's orchestrated hand, seeking revenge for his old friend. The article just published immediately caused a shockwave in public opinion. Sang-jin realizes he has no way out. Decades of reputation at risk of collapse overnight. His superior, Tak Don, erupts in fury and will not forgive this mistake. He ordered everything to be turned around. Make the eldest sister appear as a tragic victim and the dead younger sister a deserving culprit. Paint the image of the prosecutor in charge of the case as a cold-blooded demon, with a clear goal to sway public opinion, overturn the narrative, and pressure the judges so that all legal debates can lean in their favor. In front of the reporters, Sang-jin launched a campaign to turn the story around. He declared that everything was baseless accusations from the prosecution, with no direct evidence, no fingerprints, and no credible witnesses. The sister who just lost her sibling before she could even recover from the pain was falsely accused of being the murderer. Public opinion online gradually shifted. Articles kept appearing, portraying Soo-jin as an unfortunate woman pushed to the edge. The heated debate from before temporarily subsided as planned by the lawyer, and amidst the media storm, Sang-jin secretly met with Soo-jin. He coldly made a proposal, promising that if she handed over half of the insurance money, she would be guaranteed an innocent verdict. In front of the lawyer, Soo-jin finally admitted the entire truth. She said that due to overwhelming debts and a life of despair, when she discovered her sister had bought a huge life insurance policy with herself as the beneficiary, greed took over. From that moment, a cruel plan was formed, and her sister's tragedy began. Jun Kyung is checking the latest news on his phone, takes a sip of coffee with a sigh, classic JTG style, turning the situation around so quickly. Then Jun Kyung put down his glass, but he couldn't hide the truth with just a few petty tricks. Today, I will shatter your lies. Transitioning scenes inside the elevator, he muttered, "Oh, Jin Jiang," his voice echoing from the phone. "Are you working? Did you meet Jonggu?" Jun Kyung muttered to himself. "Jonggu, huh," Jin Jiang reproached. "Don't you remember I told you before?" Jun Kyung suddenly remembered that Jonggu was actually Seo Jin's high school classmate. "I heard he's working in the major crimes unit of the Southeast Gun Police." He replied. "Yeah, I remember, but what's going on?" Jin Jiang answered. "I ran into him by chance yesterday after a long time. We talked about everything. Then he told me right away about the accident he had. And do you know what else? He even dragged me around the accident scene until 2 a.m. Jin Jiang had already yawned tiredly and urged him to leave. "Jonggu, let's go and then head back to Ganggun because I only stayed that night to see him." Jun Kyung seems concerned, probably tired, Jin Jiang replies. "Anyway, if Jonggu suddenly shows up, don't be surprised." "Well, good luck." Immediately, Jonggu's voice rang out. "Kim Seo Jin." Jun Kyung's face showed a hint of surprise. "Jonggu?" Jonggu looked surprised and said, "Wait a minute. Do you only remember vaguely, but still remember me?" Jin Jiang replied. "I only vaguely remember your face, and secretly I hope this guy isn't the same as Jong Seung." Suddenly, Jonggu placed his hand on his shoulder, his face showing concern. "I will find the bastard who pushed you from the balcony." Jun Kyung quickly pulled back. "How do you know for sure I was pushed and not just falling by myself?" Jonggu replied. "As a criminal investigation detective specializing in violence, that spot was too perfect for pushing someone down." Jun Kyung quietly felt that something was very suspicious. With no CCTV cameras around and no record of who called 119. "I will need to investigate this further." Jun Kyung walks to the car, gets in and kicks the door shut. "I still have my shift this morning." The door slams shut. Jonggu fastens his seatbelt. "Why are you so serious? Not joking around like before anymore? You don't even listen to the band songs you used to like anymore. Do you really not remember anything?" Jun Kyung immediately replied, "I remember that. I didn't borrow it." Jonggu kept teasing, "And what about the bike you said you would give me?" Jun Kyung immediately replied, "I do remember that. I said I wouldn't give it." Jonggu laughed. "So you remember everything after all." Jun Kyung also smiled, quietly thinking Kim Seo Jin at least once had a good friend. Suddenly, beneath Jonggu's shirt, the ringing of a phone echoed. He picks up the phone. "Oh, North Police, you're working hard, right?" "Yes, I already asked you to inform me as soon as there was news about Yu Soo Jin. Isn't that right?" Jun Kyung immediately paid attention. "About Yu Soo Jin's case. Is something wrong?" Jun Kyung looked surprised. "What? Did you find the victim Usugi's phone?" Jun Kyung's eyes suddenly looked panicked. "You see everything around you gradually distort. Jonggu's voice still echoing in your ears. What's going on?" "Found it in a pile of straw. How could it be there?" Jun Kyung struggles to grip the steering wheel as his sensing ability suddenly activates. Jonggu shouts in panic. Kim Seo Jin, scene transition to an internal meeting room. The prosecution office is truly just a martial arts arena, just as Gu Sang Jin said afterward. Mi-jun nodded slightly, probably so, and this was also his first trial. Ji-hun showed agreement. A rookie wouldn't stand much of a chance against Gu Sang Jin, and since it was his first case, he had gone too far. Mi-jun shrugged. A traffic accident case that should have been easily resolved, but he blew it up into a big deal, just like Sherlock Holmes. A footstep sounded from behind them. Mi-jun smiled and turned around. Maybe he would end up looking foolish. He was surprised for a moment, then Jun Kyung calmly walked past him. Mi-jun couldn't believe his eyes. That person was Prosecutor Kim Seo Jin. Really him? No way. Just a short while ago he was only an intern. My CEO holds the comment, and if things go badly, Gu Sang Jin might be the one humiliated. Above, Jun Kyung places the box on the table, beginning to take out its contents, glancing at the empty seat in the front row. It seems the trial hasn't started yet. Anyway, I never expected to sit in this position again. Jun Kyung placed his hand on the table, beginning his second career as a prosecutor. A voice rings out, "Everyone please take your seats. The criminal court at Dongnam District Court is now in session. Defendant Yu Sao Jin, please state your date of birth and address." Jun Kyung silently resolves that he will no longer accept being a pawn. "Just wait. This time I will crush you all." The judge's voice echoed, "All right, defendant, please take a seat. Prosecutor, please present the main charges." Jun Kyung smiled and stood up. "Then let the second act of my prosecutorial career officially begin." Read aloud, defendant Yu Seo-jin conspired with his elementary school friend Jiang Dongyi to murder his younger sister Yu Seo-gi, who loved him. They communicated using phone numbers registered to others and devised a detailed murder plan. Sang-jin quietly felt uncomfortable, thinking the arrogant kid's smug look wouldn't last long. He reassured Seo-jin, "Don't be nervous. This is just a formality. Just deny everything the prosecutor says. The living must go on. If you go to prison, who will take care of your children?" She lowered her head and muttered, "Yes, I did everything for the children. My sister wanted that too. Yes, my sister wished for the same." She coldly replied, "No." Seo-jin lifted her face, tears streaming down. "I didn't kill my sister. Please believe me. Why would I kill my own sister? Even now, I still miss her so much. I need to go home. Or who will take care of my children?" Everyone around is whispering that Seo Zhao is really innocent. It seems so. Crying that much, she couldn't possibly be the culprit. "I heard the prosecutor is a rookie, probably trying to be a hero and went too far." Jun Kyung chuckled, amused. What does her true face look like beneath the playful mask? "Well then, prosecutor, let's begin the defendant's interrogation." Jun Kyung stepped in front of her and asked, "You, Seo-jin, do you know that you are the beneficiary of a 1 billion won life insurance policy on the deceased?" She replied, "Yes. How did you find out about that?" "You keep asking. You have a private loan debt, right?" She replied, "I do business at the market. Sometimes I need cash, so I take a temporary loan and pay it back immediately. Nothing suspicious about that." "You keep asking. When contacting Jiang Dongyi, why did she use a phone registered to someone else?" She quickly retorted, "I didn't know it was registered to someone else. Jiang Dongyi gave me that phone as a gift, saying we should stay in touch with it." Jun Kyung looked surprised. "Why?" She quickly looked away because we are dating. Jun Kyung continued questioning. "We met again at the class reunion and then started seeing each other. Did she say she bribed the money to conspire to murder her sister?" She replied, "Not at all." Seo-jin buried her head in her hands on the table. I told her no. Sang-jin immediately stood up and said, "Your Honor, the prosecutor is confusing the defendant with baseless assumptions." The judge stood up and declared, "The objection is accepted. Prosecutor, please ask questions based on objective facts." Jun Kyung picked up the paper, so I will continue asking about the phone. Seo-jin, panicked, explained, "I already said I have it because we are dating." Sang-jin immediately criticized, "Your Honor," objecting, "at this moment the prosecutor is." Jun Kyung interrupted, "I am not talking about her phone, Ms. Yu Seo-jin. I am talking about your sister Yu Seo-gi's phone, just like him. Seo-jin is the one who saw him." Jun Kyung's voice echoed again. "Do you know that your sister records her diary using voice memos on her phone?" She replied, "She sometimes records, so what?" Jun Kyung explained that the person who recorded was logging a diary at the time of the incident, but besides the voice of the recorder, there was something else also captured. Sang-jin immediately frowned and asked, "What a recording?" He started to feel worried. Finally, what is the person holding Kim Seo-jin? Jun Kyung suddenly saw Sugi's shadow. He was walking on the street in the past. She muttered to herself, arranging to give herself money to take a taxi today. "I will use that money to buy Christmas gifts, sneakers for Jiling or a slim dress for Jun Lung-yi. I wonder if Dad will come this time. If he does, I'll definitely give him a good scolding." She cheerfully shook her body and then ate the cake the whole family made together. Suddenly, Sugi Y turned around, she fell down, and her phone cracked. Sugi Eong lies in pain on the floor. A man's voice echoes, "I hit her, but she's still breathing. Damn it, she's tough." Dong-yi's face as she listens to the phone becomes clearly visible. What if someone sees? Jun Kyung collapses, clutching his face. "I saw it, I didn't even touch it." Jong-gu asked nervously, "What is it? Why did you suddenly break?" "You scare me." Jun Kyung called Jong-gu, and Jong-gu replied, "What? You suggest you can help me present the evidence in court?" The scene shifts to the courtroom, and Jun Kyung calmly states that the deceased was recording a diary at the time of the incident, but besides the victim's voice, something else was also recorded. Sang-jin's face immediately turned pale. "GK, an audio recording? I don't know what it is, but I have to stop it." He stood up to object, saying we had no prior notice, as a hand holding the evidence was raised, and Jun Kyung smiled in satisfaction. "Your Honor, we have just discovered the deceased person's phone. This is new evidence that has not been submitted before, but it will play a crucial role in clarifying the truth of the case. We request to submit it as new evidence." Soo-jin, panicked, clutches her head. "Damn it," she screams. "I didn't kill my sister. I didn't kill her." Sang-jin quickly orders, "Guard, take the defendant outside." Everyone below whispers, expecting a tense showdown, but unexpectedly, Sang-jin is overwhelmingly defeated. The judge announces that the court will decide on the acceptance of the evidence in 10 minutes, and the trial is adjourned for 10 minutes. Sang-jin angrily muttered, "Damn it, everything's ruined. My lawyer career is destroyed just because of that rookie the day after. No." He angrily thought that if anyone had to fall, it should be him, not me. I can't die. A moment later, the prosecutor and defense attorney, please step forward. Now we will decide whether this phone will be accepted as evidence. Sugi, please tap the screen. A recording plays. I hit her, but she's still alive, damn it. She's too tough. What if someone saw? Hey, Woo Soo-jin. 300 million troops. I'll make sure to deal with her. Don't forget your promise. Jun-kyu looked at Sang-jin and said, Lawyer, as you know, this is Jiang Dong-ek's voice. How do you plan to handle it? He believed that even if we object now, this recording will almost certainly be accepted in the next trial. According to procedure, I should have objected to the evidence and prepared to rebut at the next session. But he simply nodded and said, I accept. Sometimes, giving up early is the wisest choice. Sang-jin quietly felt worried that if this continued, he would lose all the reputation he had painstakingly built up over time. That's right, as long as I insist that I took this case thinking it was a traffic accident, the judge will continue. So I accept this recording as evidence. Prosecutor, please continue. Defendant, do you know what has been recorded on this phone? The recorded audio played in front of Soo-jin. This girl is really stubborn, still alive. Ha Soo-jin, what do you plan to do with that money? I'm carrying it now, still asking for designer bags at this hour. Are you crazy? If I had 300 million, everyone downstairs would be shocked and whispering, are you really waiting for her to die? Using your siblings' life insurance money to buy designer bags, are you even human? A furious man roared. Damn it, do you dare to call yourself a human? Just because of such a trivial reason, she killed Sugi Ayong. He was extremely agitated. Is he even still human? Both sides must be protected and kept apart. Soo-jin muttered. Die, disappear. It's all because of you that Sugi is dead. Why did you leave? Why can't you make money? She chuckled happily. That's why I bought the insurance. I didn't trust you, so I registered everything in my name. The man groans in pain. Damn it, let go, please. His voice shouts, Sugi, sir. The judge asks, do you want to proceed with cross-examination? Sang-jin replied, no, I don't have it. The judge declared the trial adjourned here. The next session will be held in 10 days at 2 p.m. Sang-jin muttered through clenched teeth. Next time I will definitely take revenge. Jun Kyung smiled and walked past him. Sorry, but we won't see each other again. Sang-jin, you say this into the phone. Yes, prosecutor, the trial just ended. Jin Rang's cheerful voice responds, really, and there were no mistakes, right? You replied that there were no mistakes at all, and suddenly Jun Kyung raised his hand to block the flashing lights from the cameras. The interviews continue. I hear you are the prosecutor who helped the defendant, Ngui Trang, escape a traffic accident. When did you start feeling something was off, and I understand this is your first case? Did you encounter any difficulties? Please share with us your thoughts. Jun Kyung silently wondered, what is going on, God? Cut to a scene, a folder slides to the ground. Mi-jong anxiously asks, what's going on now? Protest, a traffic accident? Jun Man shook his head. He pointed to the newspaper and read aloud. Look at this. Mi-jong picked it up. The Southeast murder-for-hire case was exposed by prosecutor Tan Bin through the malicious influence of the victim's own trusted relative, who intended to become the beneficiary of a 1 billion won insurance policy. The case nearly got completely covered up under the guise of an ordinary traffic accident, but prosecutor Kim Seo-jin didn't miss a single clue. Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin. She was startled and said, don't tell me it's our Seo-jin. Junman laughed loudly and said, actually, I mean our son is in the news now. I've bought every newspaper with my son's name. This is the evening edition. Tomorrow I'll buy all the morning copies too. His face flushed with pride. After a while, Junman happily took his son in his arms. Truly his own son, the family proud of him. You did well, very well indeed. Transition to a high-rise apartment complex, an electronic clock beeps. Junman quickly turns it off. I'm tiredly muttering to myself, did I drink a bit too much at the celebration party yesterday? But still, this is a very good start. Anyway, I was really lucky this time, but from now on I have to turn luck into strength. Because next week the new transfer decision will be announced, and I wonder where I will be assigned, ideally in the capital area. You look surprised as you stare at the calendar, but wait a minute. Why is this here? And unopened? I don't use wall calendars. Did I say I received it from Zin Rongzeung? Or not, your face suddenly changes. Jun Kyung wonders in shock. What memory is this? Now Seojung takes out the calendar, grabs it and leaves. My father brought back the entire season. He said the bank calendar will bring wealth. Junhwan replied, thank you. Now Seojung is wondering, but is your father really worried about transferring Kim Seojin to Seoul? Junhwan smiled and replied, probably because his uncle pushed for it, saying it would be better for Seojin to stay in Seoul. So he really went through with it. He put down his glass, of course not wasting the effort, had to manipulate the price and bribe everyone. Only then would Kim Seojin truly owe him? Rong Seung chuckled softly. So what's the plan after he moves to Seoul, to turn him into your pawn? Junhwan shrugged and replied, Probably so. Rong-She-Ung laughed loudly. Do we need to give him more time to soften up? If he were still in Southeast Asia, he might have gotten involved in a few more cases by now. Just imagining that bastard panicking in regret makes me feel so good. Come on, let's toast. The two of them also clinked glasses because of Kim Seojin's henchmen. Jun Kyung smiled softly, happily thinking to himself, really? Let's cut to another scene. Jun Kyung knocked on an office door, and the loud voice of Mr. Soo responded. Does he think that makes sense? So what if he's tall? This is a detention after all. Why would he waste a promising young man on this dead end? If you like, come out here and do it yourself, he muttered. Whether he's brainless or what, I don't know, Jun Kyung said. Sir, I'm here. Myung-soo turned back and asked Prosecutor Kim. You once said your uncle is Prosecutor Kim Y.O., right? Jun Kyung replied, yes. He turned away. I'll pretend not to see, so just use your connections. Jun Kyung was surprised. What do you mean by that? Myung-soo replied sharply. It's not officially announced yet, but the upcoming assignment has basically been finalized. The problem lies with you. If you sit still and do nothing, you'll keep getting stuck in Southeast Gone. Staying here too long isn't good for your background. People will say you're dirty if you keep hanging around with guys like us. Someone with a bright future doesn't need to let others doubt their stance or beliefs, right? So use your father's connections and run away. Jun Kyung's face darkened, and he said, I will stay here, and I don't want to rely on existing connections. I need to prove myself more, so please let me stay here. You told me how prosecutors and branch managers used to be, and that's why I want to learn from you. From the closest distance, I secretly think that compared to cleaning up for Kim Jun-hwan in Seoul, quietly building up my strength here is even better. Myung-soo from abroad, are you serious? Jun Kyung replied confidently. Yes, because among the prosecutors sent here, there are quite a few legends who were once ace cards. He said, wow, do whatever you want. Seung chuckled bitterly. He only acted tough out of embarrassment. Jun Kyung nodded softly with a smile. Still, saying I want to learn from Myung-soo isn't a lie. Myung-soo on the other side was muttering to himself, damn it, what do I have that I can teach him? But I can't let someone like that stay here. At least I won't have to worry about being stabbed in the back when I'm with him. In the tense situation, Jun Kyung asked in surprise, so what do you plan to do? Starting your career in exile, you should have used your uncle's connections, but I'm heading back to Seoul. Jun Kyung silently encouraged himself, thinking at least he would get away from this guy soon. So he spoke up. He's capable. He'll be transferred somewhere else, sooner or later. Jun Kyung shrugged. About ability and position, it's just luck. Even other prosecutors say so. Honestly, if it were me, I'd handle it differently. The door suddenly opened. Myung-soo walks into the room. What's all the noise about? Do you think this is your living room? Whether it's a final internship or not, just say so, or you'll regret it. Jun Kyung stammered and apologized, yes, sir. Myung-soo continued asking, you say your name is Guinea, please, Jun Kyung. He slammed the pile of documents onto the table and said, all right, Jun Kyung. So what do you think is the best way to handle this case? Jun Kyung spread out the documents and said, let me check again. He thought to himself, this case falls under Article 347 of the Penal Code, the crime of fraud. Fraud heavily depends on the subject of will, making it easy to decide not to prosecute or to declare innocence, so I must be very careful. The director ran away with tens of billions, and the secretary managing the funds is accused of being an accomplice. But the secretary claims to be innocent. He muttered to himself, shouldn't we drop the charges? And Myung-soo asked, why? He hesitated and replied, this person is just an ordinary secretary and hasn't gained any personal benefits. His salary is only around the minimum wage. Myung-soo looked around. Does anyone have a different opinion? Junkie responded, I think there's a high chance this person is an accomplice. Why? A secretary working at a company with such large cash flow for 10 years, but only earning minimum wage is hard to believe. I suspect this person has been secretly receiving kickbacks from the director in the form of bribes. There is likely a private bank account receiving unexplained funds regularly, and we just need to identify that account and extract its transaction history. The relationship between the secretary and the director will be exposed immediately. Myung-soo reached out his hand, clearly holding a different opinion from this guy, huh? He whispered to you that you shouldn't stay here. I don't think the job position is the issue. Myung-soo glanced at Seung. That guy is the one who should stay. He stepped out the door, killing time for a bit before leaving. Seung gritted his teeth in anger. Why am I being treated like this? Zoe stood up, and you feel the same way, right, Prosecutor Shin? I feel like Prosecutor Kim is leaving me further and further behind. Her face showed determination. I have to learn more at all costs, or maybe I'll never catch up to him. Seung shyly turns away. Damn it, I know. Clearly Kim Seo-jin of today has already gone ahead of me, so why has he changed so suddenly? Transition sound of a gunshot from inside the phone. You should get in, Jeong. Your uncle has enough power to do that. Jun laughed and refused. I've only just started. I want to go there with my own strength. Jun smiled broadly. Is that so? You really are your father's son? But if things get too tough, you must tell your father, okay? You obediently reply, yes, father. If it really gets too hard, I will rely on you. Okay, I will call you back later. Jun called Mr. Tratt to look outside the window. He silently thought, I can't keep living inside Kim Yang-jun's cage forever. To ensure that everything I do isn't seen as just a stroke of luck, I have to constantly prove my abilities. First, I will focus on the ongoing cases in Southeast Gun. These cases still haven't been solved, so even if I fail, it won't be a big deal. But if I succeed, there won't be any achievement more convincing than this. The first cold case I will crack is the tragedy that shook Southeast Asia 10 years ago, the kidnapping of Yuseon, a third-grade boy on his way to cram school, who was found dead 2 weeks later in a nearby alley drain. The boy's body was covered in signs of abuse, one eye missing. Yet there was not a single trace of the perpetrator on any nearby security cameras. Thinking about how such a monster is still roaming the streets, Jun Ki-young nodded with determination, vowing to catch him and drag him to hell. I'm still wondering what you're doing sitting here alone, Yuseon's case, right? Jun Ki-young was secretly surprised. And why is Lee So-hee here? He turned to look over the pile of documents. Since he had decided to stay here, I should do something meaningful. Also, I don't like the idea of such a monster still wandering out there after all these years. So, he nodded softly. That's right. She smiled faintly. It's a pity. If I had known sooner that you were like this, I would have approached you proactively. After all, you've been transferred back to the headquarters, so we will probably meet again a few times. Jun Ki-young picks up the box of documents and stands up, then says, I'll go ahead. Now I have a meeting with the investigator in charge of the Yuseon case. So he looks surprised and asks why now. She looked a bit shy and asked if she could go with him. Jun Ki-young didn't quite understand, but still replied, all right. Changing scene to the office of the Central Prosecutor's office in Seok, Kim Yeong-jun. Jun Hwan looks surprised and says, Dad, I heard Seo-jin finally stayed in Dongnam-gul. Aren't you planning to call him to Seoin? Yeong-jun exhaled a puff of smoke. The reason he's staying in Dongnam is probably because the GTG law firm got involved, interfering with the assignment of an intern prosecutor to them, which isn't a big deal. Han chuckled softly. The boy, still just an intern, already showing off and getting ahead of himself. Jun Hwan immediately understood. This was probably a retaliation for the recent betrayal of lawyer Gu Sang-jin. Yeong-jun replied, exactly. And the reason father isn't involved is to make them owe a much bigger debt. When he hears that Seo-jin has been transferred like that, his father will surely come to see him and ask to move him to Seoul. And when Seo-jin is brought to Seoul, his father is thinking of placing him under your authority. By then your father will have spoken with the senior prosecutor first, so you don't need to worry. Han pats Jun Hwan on the shoulder and says, train him carefully so that he can't do anything without you. He replied, yes, sir. A moment later, Han Jun's phone rang just as I expected. So, Jun's voice grew serious. Jun, do you remember you once said you would help Seo-jin? Han Bin Kwoi, of course I remember. The procedures are a bit complicated, but for Seo-jin, people say that the hardships of youth are something even money can't buy. Consider everything settled, and thank you for caring. Han gritted his teeth and replied, yes, see you later. Yeong-jun silently thought. Seo-jin said he would stay behind. He remembered his troublesome child. Dad, is it that low-ranking military unit again? Do you really have to go back to the province? I just want to finish my internship in Seoul compared to that poor bastard. Jun Hwan looked surprised as he saw his father's face darken. Yeong-jun coldly ordered, go outside. Jun Hwan quickly replied, yes, sir, feeling surprised, go outside. Did I do something wrong? Yeong-jun muttered softly alone in the room, daring to oppose my will and say he would stay. His eyes turned cold. I will bury him for life. Kim Seo-jin, switching back to Southeast Asia. Everyone around Seoul, what's going on? A celebrity? Wow. Everyone turns to look at So-hee, and Jun Ki-young quietly thinks, she's already attracting attention in Southeast Asia. I didn't expect her to draw so many glances. She asked, what's wrong? You just turned away? Are you used to it? No. Suddenly, Jun Ki-young felt a bit surprised. There's Lee Jong-gu. Who's that next to him? Jong-gu's voice rang out reassuringly. It might not be a disappearance, just someone running away from home. So don't worry too much. If there's any progress, I'll contact you immediately. Ri Guan. Thanks you for your help, Mr. Jong-gu. He pats the student beside him and says, "You'll be back soon. Just stay a little longer with the teacher." Yes, Jun Kyung thought to himself, an incident of disappearance. He quickly called out, "Lai Jonggu," and he happily turned around. "You're here." Suddenly, Jonggu froze, glancing at So-hee. He whispered, "Why is she with Min Tin? Who is she?" "The actress," Jun Kyung replied, "is just a colleague. We are doing an internship together at the branch office." She shouted, "No way, Prosecutor." "Ah," So-hee gently smiled and said, "Hello, I am Lee So-hee, a prosecutor at the Southeast District Prosecutor's Office." Immediately after, Yonggu quickly adopts a very polite attitude, holding out his business card and saying, "Nice to meet you, I am Lee Jonggu. I am from the homicide unit here. Feel free to contact me anytime if you need anything." Jun Kyung sighed, turned away, and suddenly kicked something. Jonggu was taken aback. Why is there a ring here? In his eyes, the ring slightly glows. The image of Asyung being tightly restrained appears, a figure in a raincoat approaching the boy. Han placed his hand over your eye, pressed it, then sharply swung the knife. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere. Jun Kyung immediately realized this was a memory from the Asyung love case. He observed the ring, a detail not listed among the evidence, and wondered what was going on. Jonggu commented that it looks like the ring Inspector Jong Mingju always carries. Maybe he got it dirty. Jun Kyung was surprised. Inspector Jong Mingju. Jonggu nodded slightly. "Yes, the officer in charge of the Asyung case you came to see today." Jun Kyung silently thought, this can't be happening. The scene shifts to Mingju shaking hands with you, very friendly. "Nice to meet you, I am Inspector Jong Mingju, I am Kim Seo-jin." Seo-hee also stepped forward. "I am Lee Seo-hee, prosecutor of the Southeast Branch." Mingju extended his hand. "Please this way to see the evidence." Jun Kyung quickly stopped him. "Wait a moment." He held out the ring. "I found this outside. I heard it belongs to you, officer." Mingju was surprised. "Why is it here? I clearly kept it in my wallet." Jun Kyung replied, "It's probably a gift from your son." His face slightly changed. "Yes, thank you for helping me pick it up." Jun Kyung secretly observed him, lying blatantly. "This ring belongs to Du Asyong. Why does he keep the evidence on him?" Inside the evidence warehouse, Mingju places the found items on the table. These are the pieces believed to have been used at the crime scene. "Most of the wounds appear to have been inflicted with this hammer," Jun Kyung mutters. "The victim's left eye was gouged out." He replies, "Yes, the weapon used to remove the eye has never been found. Besides the victim's bloodstains, there are no other traces. He's not the cautious type of criminal." Jun Kyung wondered, "Is this all the evidence there is?" Mingju replied, "Yes, Your Honor. Aside from the cigarette filter sent for DNA analysis immediately after your call, this is all we have at that time. DNA results showed no match with any known offender. We even compared the DNA with 120 men under 65, living within a 4-kilometer radius, but still no match." Jun Kyung touched the evidence without any emotional reaction. Mingju explained that since this is a tourist area, the investigation ultimately concluded that the perpetrator could be a tourist, and the case was closed. Jun Kyung coldly asked, "You also think so, right? The tourist season, that the culprit is a tourist?" Mingju immediately froze. "Huh. Oh," Jun Kyung politely smiled. "Thank you for your time." Mingju hesitated and replied, "If you need anything else, feel free to contact me anytime." A while later, Jun Kyung and So-hee stepped outside. Mingju looked curious and asked if you were close with that police officer. Jonggu was surprised and replied, "Seo-jin, right?" "Yes, that's correct." He asked further what kind of person he was. Jonggu smiled and replied, "Once he sets a goal, he will achieve it no matter what it takes." Mingju immediately fell into deep thought. Anything at all? So he gradually came to a stop. She asked Jun Kyung if this was the place where Aseon's body was found. He replied yes, and she looked worried, wondering if any clues still remained after 10 years. Jun Kyung smiled quietly. "No one knows. We must not overlook even the smallest detail. Compared to 10 years ago, this place has hardly changed. It's a very quiet alley, even during the 3 days. The camera system was only installed after the case happened, so at that time this place was likely a complete blind spot." Hung-thu knew that very well. Jun Kyung speculates that it's highly probable that Hung-thu was a local at the time of the crime. So, Hai wondered, why do you think that? According to the report, no one in the area has DNA matching the cigarette butt sample, so isn't it more likely that Hung-thu came from outside and pretended to be a tourist? "Are you sure that the cigarette butt sample is from Hung-thu?" So Hai slightly frowns and says, "Definitely, the cigarette butt was found among the victim's belongings, discarded right on the body. If it wasn't Hung-thu's, there's no reason for it to be there." Duong Qiang interrupted, "That could definitely happen if Hung-thu intentionally did so. More importantly, Hung-thu is familiar with the terrain and atmosphere of this area. The drainage outlet where the body was discarded is still covered with old belongings and discarded equipment, making it very hard to see the drain opening even now. If you weren't local, you wouldn't know there's a drain there. So Hai quickly jotted it down in her small notebook, which also sounds very plausible. Yang Qiang also secretly agreed yes. Because of the cigarette filter, all local residents were eliminated from suspicion, and the only person who could steer the investigation in that direction was, I suspect, Mindu. Hello, I am investigator Jiang Mindu. Suddenly a flash of morning crossed his mind, and the image of Mindu's face appeared in his spiritual vision. A voice rang out. Can you help me take ASEON to school? The atmosphere around here hasn't been great lately, but I have urgent work at the office today, so I might be home late. I'm a bit worried about leaving ASEON alone. Can you take him home after school? He was silent for a moment, then Mindu replied, Fine, he's your son, I can do that. Duong Qiang silently thought, That's right, the spiritual vision image I saw when I first met investigator Jiang Mindu. On the day ASEON went missing, Jiang Mindu arranged to meet the victim, Adu ASEON, who was familiar with this area and had a connection to the victim, someone with enough authority to interfere with the scene and forge or manipulate evidence. Moreover, he was also holding Du Azion's ring without permission, and at this point, the prime suspect is Jiang Mindu. But why was he still carrying it, as if he was advertising himself as the culprit? To be more certain, I need to investigate investigator Jiang Mindu's whereabouts on the day of the incident, so he suddenly looked surprised. A cat, huh? Since coming to this area, this is the first time I've seen a royal cat. There should be so many of them, there should be a lot, but I've never seen any taken. Suddenly, her eyes flicked toward Jun Qiang. Why are you standing so far away? You don't like cats? He replied. No, it's just strange. I've never liked cats since I was a kid. So he picks up the cat, really, but this one is very clingy. It already pressed against me, even though today is our first meeting. Isn't it a house cat? The cat excitedly jumps up and lands on the butterfly on Jun Qiang's head. Its whole body slammed into your face, and the images of the case reappeared, this time right where you were standing. A man in black sat on the roadside. A hammer dropped to the ground, next to the bloodied body of a cat, and the culprit's hand was inside his shirt. He drops an eye into a jar as Sohee's voice echoes, Kim Seojin, are you okay? Jun Qiang hesitates, then responds, Yeah, the weapon is exactly the same as in the Mr. Dewey A case and the eye was taken after the crime. What just happened is the culprit of the Mr. Dewey A case. Before the incident with your father, he had already attacked animals, which was a practice run for killing people or a manifestation of his twisted obsession. With cases like this, it never stops at just one. Maybe it's just that he hasn't been caught yet, but there are likely other victims. Turning to the building, Jun Qiang muttered to himself indeed before the case of the car theft. Reports of discarded animal corpses appeared frequently. All of the bodies found were damaged in some way. Moreover, after the car theft case, the number of such reports dropped sharply and unusually, suggesting two possibilities. Either the killer left the area or the perpetrator shifted from killing animals to humans, and currently no murder case has been confirmed as a serial killing. If we assume the killer is still in the area and continues to commit crimes, it means he has hidden the bodies even more carefully than in the previous case. So the clues must be in the unresolved disappearances. You suddenly remembered Jawan and the missing student. And now that you think about it, does that case also seem connected? If that's true, it means more victims are still being created even now, and if there's a chance of a serial killer, we must catch him as soon as possible. The clock shows 8:28. The door swings open, and the car engine growls mockingly. I hear you're digging into the case of Mr. Dewey's again. Do you really think unresolved cases are so easy to solve? He sat down roughly at the table. Is this a report on missing teenagers? Do you really think they all went missing? Just run away from home, run away from home. Teenagers these days are so bold. Jun Qiang said nothing. Duzong mockingly says it seems like you've gained a bit of fame, but don't go digging up old cases in the countryside again. I'm saying this out of concern for you, as an older brother. In a few days, I will get on the bus, If you have any complaints or need help, just say it. We're close, right? Or are you upset because I went alone, asking if I need anything, just say it. Considering our old friendship. Jun Qiang coldly replied, Can the ambulance use me? It's dirty work. The ambulance roared in anger. You bastard, I really can't stand this anymore. Jun Qiang raised his hand to stop and stayed silent, then picked up the phone. Yes, this is Kim Seojin. Because the car next to is still furious and growling. Hey, you. Do you think I'm your dog to be ordered around? This is Jiang Minju. Are you free right now? Inside a bar, Jun Qiang looked surprised. What did you call me out here for? Minju nervously looked around. You're not an informer. I need to ask you this. Why did you reopen the case from 10 years ago? Junkyung replied calmly. There's no particular reason. I just wanted to see that bastard's face. Minju smiled softly. Yes, we do this job to see his face, actually. You're not an informant. I've been handling this case alone for 10 years. AC, he's my friend's son. The boy always follows me around, always saying how cool my police badge is. Hey, sir, let me see your handcuffs. Even on the day he disappeared, Minju angrily slammed her glass of beer. That's why I wanted to catch that bastard myself. Then Minju continued. But lately I've started to feel my own limits. I've been chasing for 10 years without even catching a glimpse, so I thought about giving up. But I heard that you're very persistent, that you're not just an investigator, and I also know your record in the latest case. That's why I came to you. Junkyung's face briefly showed surprise. This is a scene transition. Junkyung is in his room examining a file. Minju says, I want to pass the torch to you, prosecutor. Junkyung furrowed his brow and said, this is a list of suspects. Some names match those I predicted. But is this a trick to avoid suspicion, or is he really involved? Minju continued, after you left the police chief's office, I received a threatening letter from that bastard. He left it right outside my house, along with a photo of my youngest child. I truly fear my family will be involved because of me. Prosecutor, I have decided to stop here, so please catch him on my behalf. Jun Kyung quietly organized the events, and on the day of the incident, Jung Minju received a call from her friend asking her to pick up Jua Seong. But due to an emergency call, he had to return to the police station and let Jua Seong go alone. Since then, all traces of Jua Seong completely disappeared, and he picked up his phone. Yes, this is Kim Seo-jin. The voice on the other end sounded urgent. Prosecutor, we found a matching DNA result from the cigarette filter. Moving to the next day, at the Southeast District Office, Hyo-eun's voice echoes, this person was recently convicted of theft and assault, which is why his records were added to the system. That's also why there was no data on him from 10 years ago. But this man's alibi on the day of the crime is very clear. He was hospitalized on Jeju Island due to a minor burn. Moreover, until 5 years ago, he had never left Jeju Island even once. And of course, he was never at Seoji's place. Jun Ki-hong silently thought, just as I suspected, that cigarette filter was just a distraction set up by the culprit. So how did his cigarette filter end up with Seoji when it should have been in Jeju? He picks up the cigarette butt and a scene from the past flashes in his mind. 6 children happily chatting in the park. A man sitting nearby stands up, throws the cigarette butt on the ground, and moments later, a hand picks it up and puts it into a small plastic bag. Jun Ki-hong observes the cigarette butt. If it's 2020, then that's the year the case happened 10 years ago. Wait a minute, I've seen that school uniform in the sensor view somewhere before. He suddenly remembered the student Jae-won took away, and a faint smile appeared on Jun Ki-hong's face. I've figured it out. Cut to a scene where a group of students are gathered in a corner, all taking pictures of the adorable calico cat in front of them. Jae-won gently called, Horang, I brought you some food. Come here. A student softly laughed. Teacher, let's give up. You've been trying to lure it for 2 years since you came here and it still runs away. Suddenly, Jun Ki-hong's voice rang out. There are rarely cats in this area, yet there's one here. He quickly stood up and said, this cat is from the school, and by the way, why are you here? I was just passing by and curious because I saw a lot of students gathering. Huyen-gu looked at them in surprise. Jae-won smiled at the students and said, all right, everyone, it's time to go home. A boy muttered, is the teacher planning to monopolize Horang? Jae-won immediately replied, how about we all go for evening self-study together? And instantly the students bowed their heads and saluted him. Huyen-gu looked a little worried. But the kid quickly followed his friends. Jun Ki-young said, I saw you kiss in front of the police station earlier. Jae-won happily said, now I remember, you're Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin, right? You look surprised. How do you know my name? Han-dap, you're probably the most famous person in this area now, Prosecutor. The calico cat gently rubbed against his leg. Jae-won bent down to pet it. I've also heard Officer Lee Jong-gu mention you many times. Jun Ki-young was surprised, from Jong-gu-ah. Yes, he brags about you a lot. I even want to meet you once to see for myself, so this is perfect. I heard that recently you're investigating some illegal trafficking cases, and suddenly the tall cat jumped into his hand. Jae-won muttered, strange, it seems the cat doesn't like me very much. Jun Ki-young nodded in agreement. I understand. Jae-won smiled politely and said, since we've met like this, it must be fate. If you don't mind, shall we have a cup of tea in the lounge? The case you're currently investigating, is it the ASEON case? Jun Ki-young asked in surprise. I heard about that from Jong-gu-ae. He replied, no, I only hear that you handle old cases, and when it comes to the underground trafficking case in this area, The Duaseon incident is the most famous one so far. Jun Kyung looked puzzled, saying that according to students, it seems you were assigned here only about 2 years ago. He scratched his head and replied, "Actually, I come from Chaoze-ong-jia. Maybe that's why every time I think of that child, my heart feels heavy. Has there been any progress in the investigation?" Jun Kyung takes a sip of tea and says, "I can't share details about an ongoing investigation, but we've identified a main suspect. It turns out that on the day of the incident, there was someone believed to have met the victim. But you look even younger than Yonggu. Why are you so close?" Jae-won looked surprised. "No, I am the same age as him." Jun Kyung remarked, "Your face doesn't look any different from a student's, or is Jonggu's appearance a bit fake? So you're also my age. I hope to learn a lot from you, sir." "Nice to meet you, Jae-won," he said softly. "It's an honor for me. It's hard to meet someone from the same year here, so I'm very happy." Jun Kyung looked around and asked if the car belonged to his hometown. "So this is also your old school?" Han nodded. "That's right." Jun Kyung looked around the nearby display case. "So surely your name is also in the yearbook here. Let's see. Since we're the same age, your graduation year should be 2020. You smile happily. Let me secretly look into your past, teacher." Jun Kyung flips through the yearbook and suddenly a photo catches his attention. The photo was taken in Jae-won's park with his friends. Jun Kyung smiled triumphantly. "Gotcha now, you bastard." After reviewing the yearbook, Jun Kyung was certain that the killer was the young man attending Southeast High School at that time. Moreover, to divert the investigation, they even went all the way to Jeju Island during the school trip just to collect cigarette butts. A criminal with such a meticulous mind, even back in high school, I can't imagine how many more victims there have been over the past 10 years. But from now on, things will no longer go according to his plans. Hu Yungu suddenly stepped forward to the boy. The little boy spoke up, apologizing and asking if he was the prosecutor. Jun Kyung looked surprised, wondering what was going on with this kid. "Please help me find my friend. Her name is Hasin and she has been missing for a month, but the police just see it as a runaway case and aren't actively searching. My friend might have been hanging out with some bad people, but he would never do that. He would never leave his grandma alone and just run off somewhere." Jun Kyung immediately hands the handkerchief to the boy. "When was the last time you saw your friend?" "Calm down and tell me what happened," Hu Yungu replied. "The last time I saw him was at school, on the day he disappeared, but Jaewon said he saw Hasin downtown. About 3 days after she stopped coming to school, the teacher said he tried to chase her, but Hasin disappeared immediately." Jun Kyung continued, "So the last time someone saw your friend was Jaewon is watching the two from upstairs, his eyes narrowing slightly. The scene shifts to the parking lot, where Jun Kyung picks up his phone. "Yes, investigator." The voice on the other end responds, "Regarding the families that have moved in or out around the crime scene you requested." You reply, "Yes, have you found anything? In the past 10 years, there haven't been any particularly suspicious changes, but there's one house that caught my attention." He continued, "Have you ever heard of the famous haunted house in this area?" Jun Kyung was surprised, "Really?" Jeong Hyun hurriedly explained, "No, I'm not joking, just that." And then they kept talking to each other. Jun Kyung's mouth corners lift slightly as the scene shifts to another office room. Jungu's phone rings. He mutters in surprise, "Seojin reaching out to me voluntarily. This must be trouble." Jun Kyung writes, "Jungu, I invite you for a drink. If you're free, let's go drinking tomorrow. I found some great snacks." Jungu mumbles, "Snacks," and the scene shifts to the next day. Jungu calls out loudly, "Kim Seojin. Over here, over here." Jaewon nodded and greeted you, saying we meet again. Jun Kyung was surprised and asked, "You're here too, teacher?" And he replied, "I have a few questions for Jungu about the missing person case." Jungu looked surprised and asked again when they met. How long ago had they known each other? Jun Kyung explained that they just happened to meet and then had a drink and chatted. Jungu was surprised and said, "What? You went alone without me. So today the three of us should drink together. Jaewon, do you agree?" Seojin suddenly invited him to drink tonight. He hesitated and replied, "Okay. If I'm not bothering you," Jun Kyung smiled gently. "No trouble at all, the more the merrier." A moment later, the three of them left the bar together. Minju cheerfully asked if all the young people were gathering to drink. Jun Kyung looked surprised and asked, "Senior, aren't you on duty today?" Minju replied, "Oh, I had urgent matters so I stopped by and the ring suddenly fell out, landing at Jun Kyung's feet." "You picked it up? Oh my, you keep dropping things, thank you, but don't you find it strange? Why do I have this ring?" Minju sniffed and said, "Auntie, I don't understand what you're talking about." Jun Kyung's voice suddenly grew serious. "Are you going to pretend you don't know anymore, detective?" The old lady at the corner store by the school gate remembers everything very well. This ring, isn't it the one you bought for Junkyung on the day of the incident 10 years ago? Gu hurriedly confronted him. Hey Kim Seo-jin, what are you talking about? Junkyung continued speaking. At the time of death, Jua Seong was wearing the ring that Detective Minju bought for the boy. The old lady at the corner grocery remembers everything clearly, and not long after, he disappeared. No, he was murdered. The ring changed shape. I will never take it off. So why was the ring found at the scene and sealed as evidence, and why is it in your pocket right now? Gu frowned and asked him, Senior, this isn't real, right? Minju hurriedly replied, Of course not at all, I can explain everything. Jun Kyung's cold voice echoes, Detective, we will hear that explanation in court. He remains silent, bows his head, and then takes Minju's arm to leave. Gu's voice growled, You bastard. This is the snack you mentioned, at least tell me beforehand. Jun Kyung said nothing, only silently led Minju away. Ji-guan looked confused. Wait a minute, what is really happening? Don't tell me it's Detective Minju. His lips suddenly curled up, and Jun Kyung's face showed satisfaction when he saw that smile. The scene shifts as a door slowly opens to reveal Ha-jin, tightly bound and gagged inside. Outside, sounds echo from the house, tears streaming down Ha-jin's face as the door handle moves slightly, and Gi-guan steps inside. He pursed his lips tightly, then Jae-guan laughed loudly, unable to believe Jong Min-ju was caught. I was the one who sent Jua Seong's ring to Jong Min-ju, you fools, who told you to hide the case and then dare to inform me. But thanks to that, everything went smoothly, and Gi-guan smiled happily because finally I get to see all of you again. He caressed each eye container, ever since the reinvestigation started and stirred everything up. I thought I would die from not seeing you guys for a long time, right? His eyes turned cold. Hasin, you're still alive, right? That's so unfortunate. You've probably been bored here for days, but now everything's okay. Gi-guan eagerly lifts the cloth, saying from now on the teacher will play with me. Gi-guan, still proud, thought no one would discover his crime. Then suddenly a shadow appears, and he freezes, speechless. A punch was thrown directly at his face, cracking one of his glasses, and he shouted in pain. It is Dong-gu who, rubbing his wrist and glaring at him, while Jae-guan, still lying on the floor after the punch, sat up and looked at the man standing in front of him, but didn't know what to say. Enough hide-and-seek, Lee Jae-guan. Your eyes look at him provocatively. Wait and see, because from now on your life will no longer be free. Dong-gu, holding the number 8 badge, walks toward him with 2 police officers beside him, calmly declaring, Lee Jae-guan, you are under arrest for charges including assault, kidnapping, false imprisonment, attacking student Lee Ha-sin, and murder, as well as desecrating the EU ASEAN corpse. You have the right to remain silent and refuse to answer questions. Gi-guan lowered his head and said softly, Stop for a moment. Then he grabbed the hammer beside him and suddenly yelled, Are you thinking I will obediently let myself be caught like this? He suddenly threw the hammer at Dong-gu, who dodged easily and immediately cursed out loud. You son of a bitch. The officer behind Dong-gu pointed at Gi-guan and shouted loudly, Prosecutor. The suspect is running toward the window. Dong-gu stood there, pursing his lips and frowning as he looked at Gi-guan without saying a word. Gi-guan just ran towards the window, glancing back at Dong-gu mockingly. The game of hide-and-seek is over. Don't make me laugh. Kim Seo-jin, no matter how much a nameless guy like you tries, you'll never catch him. He paid no attention to Comrade Mingu, who was already standing there, waiting. Comrade Mingu stood silently, just letting out a slight click of his tongue. Then he swiftly struck, bringing Gi-guan down to the floor as he approached. Gi-guan's entire body was slammed to the floor, his head hitting the ground and immediately losing consciousness. He lay motionless on the floor, trembling violently, and no one said a word as they watched him like that. Comrade Mingu remained silent for a moment, then sat down and handcuffed Gi-guan himself before speaking. Lee Gi-guan, you have the right to remain silent, and anything you say can be used against you in court. Outside Gi-guan's wooden house, police and ambulance vehicles are already on the scene. Everyone is on duty. At this moment, Gi-guan is being escorted out of the house by 2 police officers. He quickly had to sit in the police car, one side of his face still swollen, as the window rolled down and someone outside looked in and called out. Lee Jae-guan, it seems we still have a lot to talk about, so let's meet soon. Jun Kyung stared at him intently from beside the car door. Seeing that look from Jun Kyung, he seemed frightened, sweat pouring down his face, eyes showing a hint of panic as the police car carrying Gi-guan sped away. Jungwoo then approached and stood beside Jun Kyung, who put his hand to his mouth and whispered, I still can't believe it. Honestly, when we rescued the victim, I thought you were investigating completely the wrong way. But when he saw those horrifying things with his own eyes, he truly remembered seeing the male eyes on the prison shelf when he was drugged with hashish. And you, little brat, if you already planned with the prosecutor beforehand, you couldn't tell me in advance. I really thought he was the culprit. Jun Kyung just glanced at him when he said that, then smirked and replied, "To deceive the enemy perfectly, you first have to deceive your teammates because I already tricked and angered him, so Lee Giguan was easily fooled too, thanks. Jong-woo saw you defending yourself like that and couldn't say anything, only feeling a bit annoyed and thinking to himself, this kid." If he doesn't speak up, Jun Kyung turned his face away and looked elsewhere, thinking it was too easy to guess. Jong-woo took out a medicine, put it to his mouth and said, "How did you find this place? There must be something making you suspicious." When Jun Kyung asked that, he immediately thought that the decisive reason why he couldn't help but suspect Lee Giguan was because he remembered seeing Giguan playing with a cat when he arrived at school. At that moment, Jun Kyung was standing behind and didn't notice. He was overwhelmed by the smell from what was happening right in front of him. At that moment, Giguan raised his thumb to rub the cat's eye, which was still very calm but then unexpectedly pressed down hard, causing the cat to yelp in pain. It resembles the image Jun Kyung saw earlier of the killer's actions towards the victim, with the face of the murderer unseen in his mind. At that moment, Jun Kyung immediately thought that his behavior resembled exactly how he had angrily reacted to the perpetrator during the memory recall, and then Giguan let go of the cat and ran away. Then, when Jun Kyung looked at the yearbook photo in the case file, he immediately recognized him, and quickly deduced that he was from Choseongji and was attending Southeast High School at the time of the incident. Just a few days before the murder, he even participated in the field trip to Jeju Island. At that moment, Jun Kyung secretly glanced at Giguan and thought that all the clues pointed to him as the culprit. And furthermore, during the time Giguan returned to Choseongji, a house in a nearby village was quietly purchased, a remote place known as a haunted house, to the extent that even the village school and the former owner dared not approach it. And then, one day, a young man with a commanding presence appeared, saying he wanted to live in that house. After hearing Seong-hyun finish speaking, Jun Kyung smiled slightly over the phone and told him to inform the village chief that he doesn't need to perform any exorcism because I believe I can help catch that ghost. Jun Kyung was still thinking, and since Jong-gu saw that he was silent for so long without saying anything, he suddenly spoke up. "So, what are you thinking about for so long?" Jun Kyung thought that if he mentioned the psychic memory, they would probably think he's crazy. Thinking this, he simply crossed his arms and said, "Well, let's just call it the prosecutor's intuition." Jong-gu, hearing that, could only scratch his head in frustration, thinking, what kind of talk is this? This guy is really suspicious. The evidence found at Lee Jae-won's house is enough to prove he is the culprit in the Aseong murder case, but there are still many other cases that haven't been uncovered yet. To clarify all the crimes of the rare serial killer Lee Jae-won, a special task force was established at the Southeast Prosecutor's office. Transitioning scenes by the river at sunset. As the evening falls, two people clink glasses and drink together. Jun Kyung is sitting on a bench with Mingeu. He says that everything has progressed much more smoothly thanks to the detective in Mingeu. "Thanks, that shoulder bump was really cool, Mingeu. Hearing that, I just replied, "Oh my god, don't remind me anymore, Mingeu. I raised my hand and told Jun Kyung that I said I wanted to give up that day. "Wasn't it you who persuaded me after the prosecutor?" Actually, when I received the letter and the ring, I was already very shaken. And I continued that ever since he hated me for pursuing the case to the end, sending me a threatening letter along with Aseon's ring, I was so scared and panicked that I just wanted to give up everything. Mingeu took out the ring he bought for Aseon, looked at it, then hesitated and said, "I can't." That day, Aseon was especially clingy, insistently asking me to go with him, but because of an urgent call, I had no choice but to let the boy go alone. At that moment, Aseon cried a lot and said, "Uncle, please don't go. You said you would play with me today. Mingeu. At that moment, I took out the ring and gave it to Aseon, comforting him by saying that next time I would definitely play with him, and asked him to forgive me. Today, okay, Mingeu. I told Jun Kyung I bought the boy the ring he wanted just to comfort him, and he was so happy, as if he had never cried before. Aseon walked away with a mischievous smile, and the image of Aseon's back then shows the boy happily leaving after putting the ring on his finger. And then, when he was told that the boy had been murdered, Mingeu was so shocked that he could only stand beside the boy's body for a long time. Mingeu said, "I haven't been able to forget for the past 10 years. As he spoke, under the noon sun, Mingeu suddenly clenched his tightly held hands into fists. He, with a slightly jungi tone, told Jun Kyung that even though it was very late, he thought he could finally let go of ASEON from his heart. Thank you, Prosecutor. Mingeu couldn't hold back his tears and started to cry, but a smile appeared on his face. The scene shifts to the Gangwon District Prosecutor's office building, where someone is on the phone, telling the other end that finally this dull life in the countryside will end tomorrow. Well, because Jung was wearing a red suit with one hand in his pocket, walking and talking. But Junhwan, I think we need to deal with Kim Seojin. Lately, he's been acting a bit too much, Junhwan on the other end of the line asked. A bit too much. Du-jung stepped into the building, pressed the elevator button, and replied, he was rushing around like a wild horse that just broke free. Lately, he's been bragging about solving unresolved cases, acting like he's Sherlock Holmes or something, while I was waiting for the elevator to go down. Junhwan on the other end asked again, so how is the case progressing? It's not solved yet, right? Du-jung, hearing that over the phone, replied, there has to be a reason why those cases are called cold cases. The one with the two sisters last time was just blind luck. Yeah, I heard he caught someone yesterday, but I think it's probably a dead end. Just then, the elevator door opened. Seeing the two people inside, Du-jung immediately told them to get in the phone and said, I'll call back later. In his mind, Du-jung was thinking that when the branch chief and deputy prosecutor walk out, he would seriously salute them. But they didn't notice. Won-yong turned to the branch chief and said, they say prosecutor Kim Seo-jin even got a confession in the EU ASEAN case. Hearing that, the branch chief happily said, a true gem has just appeared. Kim Seo-jin's press conference and interview today, Du-jung stood there listening to their conversation, his face instantly changing. Branch Chief Hyun-soo, who was still very cheerful, said, so we can use this to tease Seo's team. Du-seung's face turned pale and then flushed as he thought in panic, no way Kim Seo-jin really solved a case of this magnitude. The branch chief and the deputy prosecutor had gone out, and only then did Do-seung take out his phone, silently cursing in his mind, damn it, now is not the time to think about this, I need to inform Junhwan too. Tomorrow you're going to Seo-un, right prosecutor's office. I wish you a safe journey. Du-seung, hearing that, hesitated and put down his phone, turning to ask, what are you talking about? You're not leaving, you should also be transferred back to headquarters. Seo-hai coldly replied, no, I'm staying here. As Seo-un watched Seo-hai's figure disappear into the distance, many questions arose in his mind. Could Seo-hai really have such connections? No, it's already strange enough. Why would she need to rely on connections just to stay in Dongnam Army? Her family seemed completely normal when I secretly investigated. So what is really going on? Do you remember the child kidnapping and murder case that happened in Dongnam Army 10 years ago? The news on TV now reports that the case almost became a suspended sentence. But thanks to the reinvestigation by the prosecution channel, the suspect was finally caught after 10 years. Junhwan ngevai chungkong bietnoegi chikwai marti trandi chakwe trongdokao luknai dangahi tangkim sio jinne bause goilai masao chang taigi. Junhwan, even when walking the dog, you must teach it one thing. Not to walk ahead of you. Otherwise, Dongnam's habit from an early age will cause him a lot of trouble later. Junhwan just smiled and replied, yes, I will remember that. Uji nodded with satisfaction and continued. Yes, that can be handled gradually. What's important now is that the person standing on the podium and leading today's press conference is the main character, regardless of Kim Seo-jin being the one who directly caught the suspect. The person speaking at the podium is considered the center of attention. Right now, the prosecutor's press conference is being broadcast on the screen. Uji raised his hand and asked Junhwan, Kim Seo-jin won't be the one giving the speech, right? A trainee daring to overshadow a senior and stand at the podium. That's impossible. Just think about what Southeast Asia is like. Junhwan sneered. In the end, Kim Seo-jin is just doing everything for others' benefit. Uji nodded and added, that's how life is. Next, on TV, a voice announced that the prosecution office would hold a press conference greeting everyone. When they turned around, they were immediately stunned by the scene broadcast on TV. On the news, Jun Kyung is speaking, I am Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin from the Southeast District Prosecutor's Office. And a frustrated voice loudly says, just shoot him. Then, Jun Kyung's voice continues to ring out. First, because we couldn't resolve this case for a long time, I sincerely apologize to the victim's family and the public. Now, I will present the progress of the investigation. Uji immediately stood up and shouted angrily, are the idiots at the Southeast Branch crazy or what? Handing over the press conference to a kid like that? Junhwan also took out his phone to check the newsfeed, where the case was among the top trending stories. Beneath it, countless comments flooded in, EU ASEAN is just the beginning, so he's already killed over 10 children so far. Don't let the suspect's face be obscured. Kim Seo-jin, the prosecutor, also looks pretty handsome. Is it because he's good-looking that he was chosen to hold the press conference? I heard a detective from the Southeast has been chasing this case for 10 years, and then Kim Seo-jin took over and wrapped it up in no time. After reading the comments, Jun Hwan grew even angrier, veins bulging on his neck. He was about to speak out but forced himself to hold back to avoid disrespect, his mind only focused on the name Kim Seo-jin. The scene shifts, and Jun Kyung, having finished speaking, walks away casually with his bag. Just then, a hand touches his shoulder from behind and calls out, "Prosecutor Kim." Jun Kyung glanced over and looked back at everyone in the prosecutor's office, who were praising him. "You did a great job at the press conference. You looked so cool." When the changing winds begin to settle, a completely different atmosphere is spreading across the Southeast branch. Just wait, Kim and Jun, even though it's only a small flutter now, soon it will become a giant storm that will swallow the entire field. Jun Kyung was really looking forward to that day. When he saw the notification, he picked up his phone and immediately received a message. "I will wait in the main gate parking lot." After receiving the message, Jun Kyung stepped out the door, wondering why Jong-gu suddenly wanted to meet him. Just as the door opened with a beam of light, making Jun Kyung raise his hand to shield his eyes, he saw Kim Seo-jin outside and immediately heard the reporters start asking questions. "Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin, do you have any secrets to solving difficult cases? The public's interest in you is very high right now." "Prosecutor, do you recognize this?" All he could do was stand still and wonder what was happening. Why are the reporters still here? Just as Jun Kyung was at a loss for what to do, a reporter spoke up. "Prosecutor, what is that bird on your shoulder?" Even Jun Kyung was stunned and confused. You glance over and really see a bird. Jun Kyung, startled, loudly asks, "What is that, Mom?" The moment Jun Kyung was startled by the bird on his shoulder was caught on camera by someone holding a phone. Jong-gu was standing from afar, smiling and muttering to himself, "Turning into a celebrity, Kim Seo-jin, because he dared to fire at me, so I'll upload this to YouTube." At this moment, in an office on the upper floor, through the window, you can see Jun Kyung surrounded by reporters. Hyunsu, smiling proudly, said, "Kim Seo-jin. Watching him makes me remember the old days, the days I ran without looking back, always willing to build a just society." He clasped his hands behind his back, looked around, and said, "It feels like the prosecutorial blood I thought had cooled down is boiling up again. You see that too, right?" The man responded, "Yes, branch manager, I feel the same." The branch office, which was usually quiet, has now become lively. Hyun-soo then continued, speaking to Won-young. "It seems the opportunity we once missed has finally arrived. We should go back to Seoul." Hearing this, he slightly nodded. Hyun-soo smiled again and urged Won-young to try to come up with a plan. The scene shifts to everyone happily raising their glasses together at a restaurant, celebrating the upcoming days, and finally Jun Kyung is free from his probation. There are many delicious dishes on the table now, including sashimi. Jun Kyung looked at the food on the table. His eyes light up with joy inside, thinking that this premium sashimi is something he never dared to eat back when he was in Seoul. Today, he will savor each piece carefully. Jun Kyung was about to pick up a piece with his chopsticks when someone called him Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin. He looked up and realized it was Kim Won-young, the head of the Criminal Investigation Team No. 4. He held the bottle in his hand and said to Jun Kyung, "Welcome to the Southeast Branch Criminal Investigation Team 4. Here, have a glass." Jun Kyung heard that and immediately reached out to accept the glass. Won-young, pouring the drink, said, "You managed to crack 2 big cases during your internship. That's really impressive." Jun Kyung responded immediately after hearing him. "The day is too busy. I only see Mai tomorrow." Hearing that, he immediately raised his voice. "Look at this young guy being so modest." Jun Kyung then also stood up and poured a glass for him, saying, "I'd like to offer a toast as well." Won-young raised his glass and returned her smile. "Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin hopes to cooperate with you." Jun Kyung also raised his glass, and the two clinked their glasses. He responded to him, "I also look forward to working with you." Immediately after clinking glasses, Jun Kyung suddenly saw images through it. Your file was presented, and someone said, "This is the list of the special investigation team for the serial killer Lee Jae-won. I plan to include Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin in the list, but I will have you handle a different task." "What? Are you trying to steal the rookie's credit?" Won-young immediately denied, "No, I will record your achievements just as they are. But I plan to assign you the secret task of monitoring Pa Sang-jang." After hearing the conversation, Jun Kyung immediately wondered about this name. Pa Sang-jang. "Won-young, now, I will come to your office right away to discuss urgent matters related to the case." After finishing, he stood up and turned to leave, then patted his ear and said, "Don't think about work today. Just relax and enjoy yourself." Jun Kyung nodded and replied, "Yes, see you tomorrow." Jun Kyung sat down at the table. lifting his glass of wine while checking his phone. Pa Sang-jang, Pa Sang-jang. He quickly found it and wondered, is this person? Why is he so influential? The information shows Pa Sang-yi, a businessman, and after seeing the details, Jun Kyung thinks to himself, he's still young but already holds the position of department head at a major corporation. Just as he was about to turn off his phone, Jun Kyung suddenly remembered where he had seen him before and quickly looked at a photo, thinking he was an acquaintance of Kim Jun-hwan, and in the picture they looked very close. Jun Kyung put down his phone, raised his glass of liquor, and suddenly thought to himself, I don't know why someone like Park Sang-jang has become a target for investigation, but if he's connected to Kim Jun-hwan, this could be my chance to give that guy a real blow. Kim Seo-jin, a colleague from the next desk, is calling out to him. He is holding a glass of water sitting on the sofa and turns to tell Jun Kyung there are still 2 more people coming. Sit down. And Jun Kyung responds, yes. Just then, a noise makes Jun Kyung look over, and the door opens to reveal a man and a woman. The man enters with a smile. Manager, you called me, and so he is following behind. Seeing these 2 people, Jun Kyung felt a bit curious and thought to himself, Lee So-hee and Prosecutor 55G ally, right? After the conversation, Won Young told the 2 of them, all right, everyone is here, sit down. Hello, I am Kim Seo-jin, and I hear the tone carrying a hint of sarcasm. I've heard that people call you the lucky one, right? Hearing him say that, Jun Kyung, although annoyed, forced a polite smile, but inside he thought everyone could tell it was sarcasm. Seeing the ally approach and sit down, a smile appeared on Jun Kyung's face, and he thought to himself that the rumors about Prosecutor 55G claiming Jun Kyung was a good person were just rumors. He was a despicable bastard through and through. What I am about to say must be kept absolutely secret before we begin. Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin, I need you to continue leading the special investigation team on the border, but in reality, you will immediately handle other cases as well. Don't worry. Your team's achievements will still be fully recognized. Jun Kyung listened and replied, yes, I understand. Hearing that, he put the glass of water down on the table and continued, good, let's get straight to the point. Does anyone here know the person named Park Sang-jang? All 3 of them are currently slightly above Won Young. After hearing that, Jun Kyung silently thought, just as CEO Yoo Do-an said, it's Park Sang-jang. Luckily, I investigated beforehand. The ally then forced a stiff smile and said, let's see, I've never heard of this name before. At this moment, Jun Kyung spoke up. If you are talking about CEO Park Sang-jang of Hyunjae Construction Group, then I know him. Hyunjae was chosen as the priority contractor for the Marine Park project, Zone 1, and I hear that CEO Park Sang-jang is the key figure in that deal. When Won Young heard this, he stood up from his seat and said, yes, that is exactly why I summoned everyone here. A board with pre-recorded information was pulled out. He pointed to it and continued speaking, saying that after the headquarters withdrew from the Marine Park project, Hyunjae Konchak-sun was appointed as the negotiation partner, and during this process we received intelligence reports indicating that illegal directives had been issued. Won Young pointed at Sang-jang's photo on the board and told them that the 3 of them would start investigating this case right now. The investigation must be conducted carefully, as evidence at the construction site is like dust. Just a little water and it disappears without a trace. Won Young looked at Dongmin sitting on the chair and said to him, whatever the prosecutor says, you will lead this case. I personally guarantee the abilities of your 2 rookies. The man smiled and replied, they are all very talented juniors. I just wonder if I have enough skill to guide them properly. After a final discussion, they finally left, and the door closed behind them. As soon as they stepped outside, Dongmin leaned on one hand happily and said to Jun Kyung and So-hee, I look forward to working with both of you. At this point, he turned to Jun Kyung and said, I suggest that each person conduct an independent investigation for now, then we will objectively compare the points where the investigation results match. What does everyone think? Jun Kyung immediately agreed and said, yes, sir. Dongmin saw how quickly you agreed and smiled with satisfaction before patting your shoulder. He then forced a fake smile and said, well done, lucky guy. Let's see if your luck still holds this time. Jun Kyung forced a smile on his face, despite his inner curses, recalling the feeling when he had that hand on his shoulder and thinking, this sensation. Jun Kyung immediately overheard the conversation, thinking that today, the manager called us for that reason. Do you know the Royal Chalice apartment complex? After work around 7 p.m., let's meet at the coffee shop in front. You see Dongmin calling someone on the phone. He tells the person on the other end that there is a bamboo grove there, quite private, and it's not a place lawyers usually go, so it's very safe. That guy makes my skin crawl. Jun Kyung turned to look at So-hee and asked, so you mean Prosecutor Gi Jong-bin? She nodded in response. He's notorious among female staff for his past involving women and has many victims. I hate men like that. They're just scoundrels who do things without taking responsibility. No wonder everyone despises them. Jun Ki-young saw So-hee's disgusted expression and thought to himself that he didn't know the details exactly, but it was best not to dig too deep. Then he changed the subject and suggested that they share their investigation results because honestly, working separately like this is too inefficient. Hearing Jun Ki-young say that, So-hee was also a bit surprised. The two stood outside the corridor and continued talking for a while. Jun Ki-young told So-hee that whether it's an official responsible for bribery or illegal directives from superiors, if we divide the tasks and cross-check from the start, we will finish the investigation much faster. So-hee then said, "Actually, I've been thinking the same way, but I wonder why Prosecutor Gi Dong-min wants us to work separately so easily." Hearing So-hee's question, Jun Ki-young just turned away, didn't say much, just nodded and said, "Maybe that's something we'll have to investigate together." Switching scenes, now at the door of room 507, the office assigned to Jun Ki-young, who had arranged to meet Lee So-hee after work. For now, his priority is to go to the assigned office. Jun Ki-young reached out to turn the doorknob, and when he arrived, the two inside looked out. The man with glasses stood up and said proactively, "Hello, Prosecutor. I am Investigator Lim Jong-taek." The girl carrying a box also spoke up. "I am Jo Min-ji. I look forward to working with you. I'm Kim Seo-jin. I brought a little bribe to ask you two to take good care of me." Jun Ki-young, hearing her say that, squints and responds with a smile. "Exactly right. I enjoy working overtime." After hearing that, the atmosphere in the room suddenly turns tense. Jong-taek forces a laugh and asks, "You're joking, right?" "You're just joking." Jun Ki-young saw they looked tense, so he picked up a glass of water and laughed. "Don't worry. I also like evening life, so come on, drink before you fall asleep." The two of them asked in unison. "Really?" He immediately assured them. Of course, balance is very important. Jong-taek, holding a glass of water, burst out laughing and said, "The prosecutor really surprised me." He thought to himself, this acting deserves an Oscar. And the opening of Jun Ki-young's new office went smoothly. Jun Ki-young thought that in the near future, Lim Jong-taek would look back on this first encounter as a beginning of lies and pretenses. Cut to a scene, now evening, at a cafe with very unique decor, pink teddy bears, flower vases, and furniture that looks like it's meant for children. Jun Ki-young and So-hee are here, each carrying a tray. So-hee, with a grim expression, asks, "Tell me, Kim Seo-jin, why did we come here, and you just keep silent with pursed lips?" "I didn't expect your taste to be so unique. There are plenty of cafes outside." Jun Ki-young said nothing. In his mind, he was thinking that there was a very high chance that Park Sang-jang and Ji Dong-min would meet here, and he couldn't tell her about this just yet. They sat down, and Jun Ki-young then lightly cleared his throat and said, "I have already conducted a deeper investigation into Park Sang-jang, the CEO of Haeyoungjae Kongchak-sin, and it seems he has political connections, at least a district chief, a congressman, or at minimum a city councilor. We need to determine the scale of the corruption and how the money was transferred when suddenly one of their phones rings, the screen showing it's the mother. So he saw the phone ringing repeatedly, so she reached out to turn it off and said, 'Sorry, go on.' Jun Ki-young also saw it and replied, 'It's okay, answer it, maybe it's urgent.' So, he just put her phone aside and replied, 'No. My mother calls to check on me every day. At this time, I can call back later.' Jun Ki-young immediately continued speaking to get back to the main point. Park Sang-jang has a close relationship with Prosecutor Kim Jun-hwan at the Central Prosecutor's office. So, he calmly raises her glass of orange juice to her mouth and asks, 'So what does that have to do with this case?' Jun Ki-young then continues saying also, Kim Jun-hwan and Prosecutor Gi Dong-min are former classmates and very close. So he, upon hearing this, seemed surprised as well. Jun Ki-young took out his phone and showed her a photo of Jun-hwan posting on social media. Below, So-hee saw Dong-min and Sang-jang commenting very friendly, saying it's great and arranging to meet again next time. "Hey guys, let's party again next time." Jun Ki-young showed her and then continued to say, "This is Kim Il-ni HVKAN's private group. You saw Gi Dong-min and Park Sang-jang's comments, right?" Then So-hee suddenly snatched the phone from your hand, looked at it, and asked, "Wait a minute. Gi Dong-min once said he wasn't acquainted with Park Sang-jang. And if it's a private account, how could you access it?" Jun Ki-young then told her, "Kim Jun-hwan is my cousin." So he immediately lifted her head and asked with a gloomy face, "What do you mean?" Jun Ki-young saw her misunderstanding and explained that even though they are cousins, they are not the same type of people, so she doesn't need to look at him that way. So he immediately spoke up. "No, I mean, if you're family," but before she could finish, Jun Ki-young quickly noticed and immediately pressed her head down, surprising her and preventing her from reacting. Jun Ki-young lowered the table lamp. Sang-jang walked over and smirked, saying, "Hey, Young, this place is really private, but two men coming in like this, Aren't you worried people will misunderstand? Dongmin just smiled and replied, let them misunderstand. Being misunderstood like that is easier than other misunderstandings, right? Sang-jang then pointed at Junkyung's table and joked, you see, those two are already going at it. They must be really excited. Junkyung, still with his hand on So-hee's head and not paying attention, said, when they just arrived, it was Prosecutor Ri Dong-min and General Director North Sang-jang. The timing couldn't be more perfect. I heard you clearly, so take your hands off my head. Junkyung picked up his phone and stood up, saying, let's move to the nearby table to gather some evidence. So-hee, wiping her face, heard this and asked, evidence, are you going to record them? The remaining cake frosting on her face, So-hee frowned again and insisted on recording the third party's conversation without permission, which violates Articles 3 and 16 of the Confidential Communication and Information Protection Law. You know that's illegal. Junkyung pushed aside the curtain and smiled. If you plant a listening device and then leave, it's definitely illegal wiretapping. No argument. But what if it's a recording made completely by chance while we're on a date? After saying that, he thought to himself, I'm very sorry to say this, but this is the main reason I came here with Lee So-hee. So-hee, hearing him say that, stammered for a long time before finally managing to say, dating. Who said that? Junkyung just comforted her, saying, come on, I'll go ahead now. You wash your face and then come after. Junkyung stepped outside, slowly approached Dongmin's seat and thought to himself that as long as he used this recording for the internal report, there wouldn't be any legal issues. Luckily, the soundproofing here is almost perfect, so recording is feasible, but if we get caught, everything will become much more complicated, and you can't afford to be caught. Just then, Sang-jang stood up from the table and said, wait, I need to go to the bathroom. Hearing voices coming from the room, Junkyung froze completely, a thought crossing his mind. Please don't let it be Gi Dong-min. Then, unexpectedly, it was Bak Sang-jang who stepped out. Sang-jang looked up sharply as he exited, and Junkyung, seeing this, gently raised his hand in a subtle gesture. Luckily, it was Bak Sang-jang who passed by. I was just thinking he looked like a gangster. After turning back, Sang-jang immediately spoke. Sorry, I interrupted the conversation. He sat down in the chair and asked, continue, why are you being investigated? At this moment, Junkyung and So-hee were also sitting nearby. Both had already turned on their phone recorders. Dongmin, sitting nearby, now asked, Sang-jang, have you bribed government officials? He responded honestly, that's just normal in business. If you want things to move faster, you have to grease some palms. Sang-jang picked up the glass of water, took a sip, and continued casually. But it's my fault. It's just because you officials work too slowly. I thought it was something serious. Turns out it's just that, and So-hee, hearing him say that, quietly cursed under her breath, you bastard. Dongmin finally spoke up after hearing Sang-jang, revealing that the Gangwon Urban Development Corporation withdrew from the project and his company was chosen to negotiate for money. Tell the truth, who did you bribe and with what? After hearing that, Sang-jang raised his hand to his head in annoyance. Is this some kind of interrogation now? Dongmin then said, that's not it. You just need to know what I did so you can stay. Sang-jang replied, I met a district counselor, arranged for a girl to sit next to him, and gave him some money, that's all. Do you want me to list the drinks and snacks too? Junkyung and So-hee also heard what he said. Sang-jang crossed his legs, opened his mouth to curse, then continued, just forget it. From now on, just let me know how far the prosecution is digging. If this case ends well for me, I will make sure you get transferred out of that exile place during the personnel reshuffle. Dongmin looked a bit confused after hearing him say that. Sang-jang now sneered and looked at him, saying, don't think I don't see through that face, so that's why you suddenly started cozying up to Junhwan lately, right? I know you're also close with Junhwan, Dongmin. Recently he's building his own faction, and you could arrange a spot for him there. You understand what I mean, right? Dongmin clenched his hand on the table. After a moment of silence, Dongmin finally spoke up. Don't worry. Trust me. Sang-jang was pleased and said, as expected of a prosecutor, you pick up on things quickly. That's why I like our Dongmin. After finishing their conversation, they quickly left the cafe, unaware that they had been followed. Once they were gone, Junkyung pressed the button to end the recording. So-hee also let out a sigh and said, I understand the situation now. I thought he was just messing around with women. Who would have guessed it was even worse? Junkyung held his phone in his hand, just smiling faintly and replying, anyway, this gave us a very important lead. So-hee then asked again, you knew they would come here in advance, right? How did you know? In response to So-hee's question, Junkyung simply said, I happened to overhear Prosecutor Gi Dong-min on the phone. So-hee, hearing that, looked a bit suspicious and asked, are you really a genius, or is it just your skill? Junkyung, hearing her, just shrugged and proudly said, luck is also a kind of skill, but can you stop calling me that? So, He then stood up and slammed her hands on the table, looking fierce as she said, "So he's a district counselor, right? Then let's dig into the relationship between Baeksang-jang and that counselor first." Jun Ki-young immediately replied, "No," after hearing what Gi-dong-min said. "Baeksang-jang will definitely erase the traces first, and once he does that, the dust at the scene will settle and disappear instantly. So he, after listening to your analysis, has calmed down and asked, 'So what do we do now?'" Jun Ki-young just smiled and replied, "It's simple. Just make the dust rise again." The scene shifts to a barbecue restaurant filled with many people, celebrating the Southeast Gun Company party. A man with a mole on his face and a flushed face is the VKFI district councilor Jun Sang. He just opened his mouth and, with a strong alcohol smell, said, "Jun Sang, I hear you come from the countryside." The girl in the yellow shirt sitting next to Jun Sang heard him ask and replied softly, "Yes." He then smiled and put his hand on her shoulder. "We're from the same hometown. Just treat me like an older brother from back home. Relax. But just for fun, call me Appa and see how it feels." Jun Sang's face darkened at his cheesy words, but he couldn't protest. The man sitting at the opposite table. Isn't it also true that Yui Jung quickly picked up his beer and turned away? Jun Sang then burst out laughing and said, "Girls from the countryside are truly born that way. How about we go out to eat sometime? Give me your phone number." Yui Jung, hearing him say that, could only purse her lips and stay silent. Jun Sang, seeing her not respond, continued to tease her. "If you don't say good morning tomorrow, Appa will be sad." The man sitting opposite also chuckled and said, "Mr. Counselor, I think I might have had a bit too much to drink." The boy was so frightened by the threat that he turned pale and couldn't say a word. Jun Sang, sitting opposite, immediately glared and looked over, then said, "What's with that kid? Look at him. He doesn't understand the situation at all." The man sitting next to Mark Fest immediately stood up and scolded, "What are you doing?" Apologize to the counselor right now, hearing that he also just bowed his head and stammered, "Sorry, sir." But Jun Sang at this moment stood up and slammed both hands down on the table. He immediately turned around and walked away, waving his hand dismissively and angrily saying, "You ruined my mood. Cultural director, take that bastard somewhere else. I need to use the restroom." Mark Fest, the man, immediately bowed and replied, "Yes, sir. What's going on?" Jun Ki-young, standing in front of the bathroom door, bowed his head and greeted, "Counselor Jun Sang, hello." Hearing that, he pointed at Jun Ki-young and scolded, "You bastard. Blocking the door like this. How am I supposed to go?" "Who are you?" Jun Ki-young heard him ask and then replied, "I am Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin from the Southeast Branch. I have urgent matters to discuss with you, Counselor." After saying that, he stepped toward him, and Jun Sang, seeing this, felt a bit awkward, hurriedly took a few steps back, thinking to himself, "Wait a minute. Is he really a prosecutor?" Jun Sang stammered, "A prosecutor? No, why would a prosecutor be here?" Jun Ki-young directly asked, "I'll ask straight out. Do you know Park Sang-jang, the director of Hai Young-jai's car repair company?" Hearing that name, Jun Sang's face changed instantly, and he thought to himself, "Park Sang-jang. That bastard got caught, damn it. I really shouldn't get involved with those car builders." Then he let out a sigh and continued to think, "Wait, stay calm. Maybe he's just suspicious, right? That's right, the other side is just a rookie prosecutor." After thinking for a moment, he then raised his hand and said to Jun Ki-young, "Park Sang-jang, Ha Young-jae, Con Jackson, I have no idea what you're talking about." Jun Ki-young, hearing that, immediately felt annoyed with him. "Stop pretending. We have indirect evidence of bribery," Jun Sang, upon hearing that, instantly went into a rage. "If I took bribes, where's the proof? This is so unfair. I've lived honestly my whole life, and now I'm being slandered like this." He raised his hand and pointed directly at Jun Ki-young's face, shouting loudly, spitting everywhere, "Wait a minute, are you two prosecutors from the political department promised a position to slander me? That's ridiculous. Daring to pick a fight with VKI Jun Sang from the university. If you want to interrogate me, do it properly through official procedures." He just finished shouting, then walked past and shrugged at Jun Ki-young. As he reached the door, he picked up the broom and glanced at Jun Ki-young. "Bribery, huh? What do you take me for?" When he reminded him about the broom, he was sweating, thinking to himself, "Why is it so complicated?" Outside, after Jun Sang left, a bunch of people following him hurriedly said, "Counselor, with this kind of departure." The man in the suit kept following Jun Sang insistently and said, "If it's about the member earlier, I will handle it seriously." He didn't catch any of the words and just replied, "Quiet down, I already said I'm leaving, so what's all this fuss? Clean yourself up and go home." The women in the crowd whispered to each other, wondering what was going on, feeling relieved when he suddenly left on his own. Then a man approached and asked to pass through, catching everyone's attention. The crowd immediately moved aside to make way for Jun Kyung, and as he passed through the crowd, whispers and murmurs spread. Wasn't that Prosecutor Rizao, Prosecutor Baitu yet? Everything was under Jun Kyung's control. He muttered to himself, "Is that talking about me, and where did that strange blue badge come from?" Just then, Yuan Jong walked by and accidentally bumped into Jun Kyung as he looked down. Immediately, Jun Kyung sensed something was wrong. I saw Jun Sang holding her hand tightly inside a karaoke bar. Then he said, "Yuan Jong, come rest with me for a while. Just the two of us. No need to talk if you don't want to." Before she could finish speaking, he interrupted with a threat. "If you don't want to, just go home. And the others, cut." Just kidding. If you're not careful, people might think you're forcing me. I want it too, Yunjong, right?" Yunjong immediately turned back after bumping into Jun Kyung and said sorry. Right after, she hurriedly left, and Jun Kyung watched her go, thinking to himself, that was just now. Outside the barbecue restaurant, the call on the other end of the line came through with a voice saying, "Yes, Prosecutor, Jun Sang's wife has begun to act." Jun Kyung put one hand in his pocket and said into the phone that tonight he would erase all the important evidence. Meanwhile, dust would rise and something would definitely fall out, so please follow him and don't lose track. Jong Taek, on the other end, sitting in his car, immediately responded, "I guarantee you will have a balanced life from tomorrow," though deep down he was actually thinking, "There is poison in that cup of coffee." Jun Kyung then saw the girl from earlier and said into the phone, "If anything happens, contact me immediately." Jong Taek responded, "Yes, go inside." After hanging up, Jun Kyung called Eun Jong. "Excuse me, wait a moment." She turned around upon hearing this. Seeing Jun Kyung, she immediately greeted him, Prosecutor Snow White. Upon hearing that, Jun Kyung thought to himself, what the hell is going on? He forced a smile and said, "I am Prosecutor Kim Seo Jin from the Southeast Branch. Do you have a moment now? I want to ask you a few questions about Counselor VQI Jun Seng." Hearing this name, Eun Jong immediately froze, and Jun Kyung thought to himself, just as he expected, her reaction. Eun Jong finally bit her lip and stammered, "Why are you asking me about that?" Jun Kyung saw her like that and said, "We will absolutely protect the identity of the informant. If you find it difficult to talk to me, you can speak with Prosecutor Lee Seo-hee, who then approached from behind and greeted her." And Seo-hee suddenly took Eun Jong's hands with both of her own, looking directly into her eyes with sincerity and saying, "Don't be afraid. Tell us everything. We will help you." Seeing Seo-hee like that, Eun Jong was caught off guard and didn't react immediately. Then she quickly withdrew her hands. Eun Jong looked away with a slightly red face and said, "Actually." Seo-hee and Eun Jong went inside. She immediately asked, "Prosecutor, will the identity really be kept confidential?" Seo-hee, sitting opposite her, listened and quickly replied, "Of course. I promise." Immediately after, Eun Jong told Seo-hee everything she knew, while Jung Kyung was outside looking at his phone. He opened his phone and searched for Prosecutor Snow White. Seeing the suggestions that appeared, Jung Kyung couldn't help but wonder what these related search terms meant. The search keywords: Prosecutor Snow White. The real name of Prosecutor Snow White is Prosecutor Snow White Kim Seo Jin. Prosecutor Snow White Rai. When you scroll down, you see the image of you chasing birds, which immediately makes Jung Kyung think. 800,000 views. The prosecutor controls the birds, the parallel theory between Kim Seo Jin and Snow White. Only then did he understand why they were so hostile. When he scrolled to Jung Kyung's name, he was caught off guard and thought to himself, "What the hell is going on? Damn it, just wait and see." At this moment, Seo-hee comes out and calls, "Prosecutor Kim, go ahead now." Seo-hee immediately asked you as soon as the two of them went inside, "Isn't it cold outside? You should have come in earlier." Jung Kyung replied after hearing her say that, "I guess there are some things she can't say directly in front of me." Seo-hee, after hearing that, immediately assessed him as quite considerate. Jung Kyung asked Seo-hee as he sat down, "Is Eun Jong back already?" Seo-hee nodded and said, "Yes. Just in case something happens, she left through the back door. She said she would greet you properly next time." Seo-hee at this point sighed again and scolded him. That arrogant VKFY Jung. They're even more despicable than I thought. Not just Ms. Eun Jong. He also took turns seducing the young female musicians in the orchestra, but now it's over. Because we offered to help, Eun Jong said she wouldn't run away from the issue. She planned to gather the victims and file a complaint. Jung Kyung gasped upon hearing that. Great. Seo-hee is sitting in the seat opposite. She pressed her device in frustration and continued. Those who abuse their power to commit sexual crimes. I really can't forgive him. Jung Kyung immediately picks up his phone and stands up. Then let's go. Seo-hee, confused, looked up and asked, "Where are you going?" Young Ki-young lifts his phone for Seo-hee to read the message and then speaks. Go so VKFY Jung can learn the hard way that what goes around comes around. Investigator Kim EOMG. Prosecutor. I just got hit with a big pile of dust. The scene shifts to a water pond where several people and 2 cars are present. A person, now holding a stiff object with a blackened shoulder and in hand, spoke up. This is. Young Taek then pointed at the trembling man with his head bowed and said, about 10 minutes after VKFY Young entered the house, this person came out looking pale and kept glancing around. Young Taek is still talking now. Anyone can see he's worth it. So I followed him, and guess what? He is burning a hard mask right here. The man with glasses on his forehead stammers as he speaks. I'm sorry. Young Ki-young raised the hard piece in his hand and asked, is this the hard piece of Counselor VKFY Young? This man's name is Tai Jang. Hearing Jung Ki-young's question, he immediately raised his hand to nervously explain. He suddenly forced me to swap my evidence with his. I really had no other choice. Young Ki-young thought to himself, clearly having used this person to destroy the evidence. So that means it's very important. He ordered him to burn it. Young Ki-young looked at the hard object and asked again. So VKFY Counselor Young, the savvy one, told you to burn and destroy it? Taijang immediately replied honestly, no, he told me to hide it carefully until the prosecutor's investigation was over. And if I'm about to be caught, then I'll burn it. But I think getting caught is unavoidable. So I thought it was better to burn it first. I'm sorry. Taejang, as if you don't believe me, immediately snapped and said, I will keep everything that happens today a secret forever. I won't tell the council member either. Please, trust me. Young Ki-young then spoke up to remind him that he should do exactly that. I will keep an eye on things for a while. Thank you. Taejang responded immediately. Thank you, prosecutor. After Taejang left, so he finally arrived and said, I really saw everything unfold too excessively. It's badly burned like this. Can it be restored? Young Ki-young replied immediately. It's probably very difficult at the branch. With this level of damage, I guess I have to send it to the Gangwon district prosecutor. As soon as he finished speaking, he started thinking again. Wait, sending it there would only make it more dangerous. Young Ki-young thought as he looked at the hard drive in his hand. The opponent is a politician. It's best to act as if the worst-case scenario is happening. Young Ki-young immediately told So-hee, leave it to him. Hearing that, she immediately asked with some suspicion, can you really do it? Young Ki-young thought to himself, how capable could he possibly be to help him out this much? You told So-hee, of course I didn't do it myself. Young Ki-young took out his phone, and while composing a message said, I have someone I can ask for help. The message was sent to Jong-gu. Jong-gu, I need the hard drive in your hand. A young police officer wearing glasses is examining the hard drive. He raised his hand after the girl and said, you won't know until you try. After inspecting it, the officer said, yes, if the damage inside isn't that severe on the outside. It's possible, but I can't guarantee for sure. Jong-gu immediately pats the officer on the shoulder and says, don't worry. Officer Back is our best technician. It will take about 2 hours. So remember to buy chicken for us later. Jong-gu, hearing that, immediately took out his phone, opened the food app, and started eating. Just order it already. Half spicy, half regular. Officer Back, seeing that, also enthusiastically said, nice choice. Immediately after, he stood up and waved his hand before leaving. So when the chicken arrives, call us. In the meantime, I will check the situation. After the two of them left the room, Jong-gu immediately spoke up. Thank you. You saved me. Jong-gu just happily replied, no need to be formal. It's between us. Let's just consider this as the case of Prosecutor Snow White. Jong-gu then awkwardly smiled and said, we've been caught. Sorry. I just want you to do well. Has the food delivery arrived yet? They're so quick. After talking for a while, Officer Back also came out and spoke. Surprisingly, the damage was very minimal. I was able to recover everything. Even the deleted files. I intentionally didn't look at the content. So don't worry. Jun Ki-young quickly took the memory card and plugged it into the computer. Thanks to the clean operation by the North Police, even the deleted files can be recovered. A computer screen. As Jun Ki-young checks, he thinks to himself, the folders are organized by year, starting with this year. I wonder what's inside this tiny Pandora's box. He moved the mouse and clicked on the box on the screen. After watching, Jun Ki-young seemed unable to believe it, and immediately thought about why VKPY Jun-seng was so confident. VKPY Jun-seng has bribed both major politicians, Governor Lee Se-moon of Gangwon and Southeastern Congressman Aom Yu-seop. Lee Se-moon is known as the Lord of Gangwon's underworld, while Aom Yu-seop is a former judge turned congressman. If this gets sent to the Gangwon District Prosecutor's office, that fake old man is about to retire. The head of the gang Won Jun has already used it as a pass for his nomination. After reviewing everything, Jun Kyung raised his hand to hold it. He paused and thought, but with only the data in this USB, it was still difficult to move against Lee Se-moon and Eom Useop. I don't want to admit it, but they are the ones in control of this world. If you act recklessly, you'll end up with that same tragic ending again. Jun Kyung remembered when he was pushed from the high floor and fell. Therefore, you will end this case at the level of Counselor VKPY Jun Seng. Jun Kyung took out the USB, looked at it, and decided to keep it for the right moment, like locking the first step to enter the center of power. Switching scenes now in front of a vending machine, someone asks again, "Have you fixed the O-Kung?" After a tiring night, Jun Kyung and So-hee meet again, as he hands her water and calmly replies, "I couldn't fix it, so I sent it to headquarters." So, he then sighed and said nothing is going smoothly. Besides that, there are still many other pieces of evidence. From afar, a man approached and greeted everyone. "Are all of you here?" Dongming approached, smiled at the two of them, and said everyone has done quite a bit of investigation, so let's have a quick meeting tonight. Bring all the investigation results. I will also share my part. I am really looking forward to it, my little brothers. After saying that, he immediately left. Jun Kyung watched his back and muttered, "Oh, share this knee of mine. He'll run straight to North Senjang and tell everything." So he, hearing that, looked a bit worried and asked, "So what do you plan to do?" Jun Kyung raises the bottle to his mouth, takes a sip, and says, "Just listen to what he has to say first." So he can't hold back and continues to ask, "Then what? What happens next?" Jun Kyung heard that and just chuckled softly, saying, "Then we'll see when that time comes. We have collected indirect evidence indicating that Director North Senjang gave money to Counselor VKFY Jun Sen, but since it was officially reported, it's hard to consider it as bribery." After hearing Dongmin's explanation, Won Yang asked, and Dongmin replied, "Yes, it's recorded as a legal donation." At this moment, an arm reached out to cut him off. Prosecutor Lee So-hee, Dongming. So-hee then spoke up again. "According to my investigation, some officials received gift certificates worth 500,000 won. They say it was received casually from friends from the same hometown, but the problem is that most of those friends work at Haiyangjae Construction." So, according to Kim Yeongzan's law, before she could finish speaking, Dongmin raised his hand to his neck, looking tired, and sighed. Immediately afterward, Prosecutor Lee So-hee questioned, "What is the Kim Yeongzan law? If you do not receive 1 million coins each time or over 3 million coins in a year, you will face criminal charges." Dongming then continued, saying that unless it involves official duties or exchanges of benefits, each person can only receive gift vouchers worth 500,000 won a maximum of 6 times. He said irritably, "I have to explain everything in detail like this, really." So-hee was about to say something else. "Even so, Your Honor." Dongming did not give So-hee a chance to speak and continued explaining that for employees transferred to the southeast for projects, Hyunkon Chok-sin was believed to have issued gift vouchers, and some people might have kept them instead of using them, giving them to acquaintances. And coincidentally, those acquaintances are all government officials. Won Yang heard this and also found it reasonable, saying this is where the trouble begins. Seeing Won Yang agree, Dongming smiled again and continued speaking. "The key point is that all the employees who received gift vouchers are currently holding positions completely unrelated to the project." After saying this, he thought to himself, this is the gap in experience. Just as Dongmin thought he was gaining the upper hand, Jun Kyung suddenly spoke up to analyze, explaining that these officials had previously worked in related departments, like urban development, urban finance, environmental management, and tourism development, and had been transferred within the administrative system. Sitting calmly on his chair, Jun Kyung explained, "But now they are no longer directly involved in the project, right? Based on the storyline, the next day's events are enough to establish reasonable suspicion." Furthermore, VQI counselor Jun Seng, who has received official funding from Bak Seng, has recently donated 5 million won each to 6 members of the Dihan Party. If we trace the source of that donation, wouldn't everything become clear? Junmin thought as he clenched his fist tightly. This punk, a kid born with a silver spoon in his mouth, knows nothing, yet he keeps emphasizing every word. Listen carefully. Prosecutor Kim Seo-jin, Gangwon Urban Development Corporation has returned the Maureen Park project to reduce debt. And Hyun Kwan Jackson invested in that project because of its brand value, that's the truth. And the story ends there. Seeing him lose control and raise his voice like that, Jun Kyung simply calmly said, "Indeed, it's very strange. My father also works in the construction industry, so I asked around. He said that the Maureen Park project was not financially burdensome at all, yet you fiercely defended it, despite knowing that. You want to get out of here?" Hearing Jun Kyung ask that, he was immediately stunned and blurted out 2 words, "What?" Jun Ki-young took out the recorder, placed it on the table, and said, "You know everything, right?" When he played the recording, a voice sounded, "Forget it from now on. Just let me know where the prosecutor's investigation has reached. If this case is resolved favorably for me, I will make sure you are removed from that exile position." The voice on the phone keeps going, "You also know that I'm close to Junhwan, right? Dongmin, lately he's been building his own faction. Can you arrange a place for me in it?" Hearing this, So-hee was also stunned because she didn't expect him to bring it up, and Wan-young was just as surprised. Finally, Dongmin's voice rang out clearly, saying, "Don't worry, just trust me." And at that moment, Dongmin turned pale and couldn't say a word. Sweat beads formed on Dongmin's forehead, his face distorted as he desperately tried to justify himself, thinking, this is a misunderstanding. It's all just a misunderstanding, while secretly cursing Kim Seojin's son of a bitch. Wan-young's voice grew serious as he asked, "A misunderstanding, right?" Dongmin, now panicking, put his hand on his chest and shouted, "Yes, it's really a misunderstanding. I can explain everything. I just did that to gather information from Baksang-jung." Wan-young then got angry and said enough, then turned to Jun Ki-young and So-hee and told them to go outside, and they immediately stood up, with Jun Ki-young replying, "Yes, sir." After the two of them left, only Dongmin was left standing silently in the office. Jun Ki-young looked at her and then turned to glance at her. Noticing she seemed angry, she frowned and said, "You should have been more careful. Now it looks like we are the ones targeting them if you, as a rookie, dare to undermine Dan Eng. You will be hated immediately." She then stopped speaking. Seeing Jun Ki-young's still mischievous expression, So he asked him again, "You can tell just by looking at that face. You've already planned something, haven't you?" As Jun Ki-young walked away, he told So-hee not to worry, that it definitely wouldn't happen. She sighed and then asked what gave him such confidence. Jun Ki-young then asked So-hee, "Do you know why the director was demoted to Southeast Asia?" He then told her about a scandal from years ago involving a prosecutor bribed by the real estate industry, which was covered up. Jun Ki-young then raised his finger and asked, "So-hee, do you know who caught that director?" She immediately guessed, "Is it not?" Jun Ki-young immediately said to her, "Yes, it was Director Kim Kwan-young, and you understand our situation better than anyone. Do you think he will sit idly by and watch us repeat that path?" So he, after hearing this, also felt it was right, and immediately said, "Exactly." The two of them head to the elevator, and Jun Ki-young continues speaking to So-hee, saying that he might cut off Gi Dong-min and end everything quietly. If the director himself intervenes, everything will fall apart, so he will use Lee Myung-soo to handle it and order him to clean up the mess. The scene shifts as Kwan-young, holding his glass, says to clean up that mess, and Lee Myung-soo responds, "I will ensure Gi Dong-min's smooth departure from the start," causing So-hee, who is drinking, to choke immediately. So, he wiped her mouth with her hand and frowned, thinking, is he really a fortune teller or what? Lee Myung-soo then turned to them and calmly said, "Forget everything that happened today. Only the director and us know about this." And both of them responded in unison, "Yes, understood." After finishing their conversation, Kwan-young happily raised his glass and said, "All right, let's eat and pretend nothing happened." The other three saw this and also raised their glasses. After a while, So-hee was now tipsy. Her cheeks flushed, and Myung-soo sitting opposite her was not much better. In the alley outside, Kwan-young and Jun Ki-young are here now, and he says to Jun Ki-young, "Prosecutor Kim, sorry, but we should stop this case. You said the information has already been leaked through the wiretapping and the dust has settled at the court, no matter how hard we try." Jun Ki-young understood what he was thinking, and Lien actively stepped forward to help Kwan-young with the medicine, confidently saying, "I can do it." After applying the medicine, Lien put the lighter back into his shirt and continued, "I want to turn North Senjong's arrogance into a roar. Please let me finish this." He listened to you, and a hint of surprise flickered in his eyes. Kwan-young turned back to Jun Ki-young and said, "You remind me of myself when I was young." "All right, give it a try, but if you're going to do it, you have to wipe them out completely." Jun Ki-young now thinks to himself that according to the 11 heavenly laws of the Republic of Korea, all citizens are equal before the law. But since there are clearly some who stand above the law, he will not only use righteous methods this time. So the first method he chooses is to use deception to clear deception. Now let's start the cleanup. Switching scenes, Jun Ki-young suddenly enters an office, raises his hand and says, "Hello, may I ask?" The staff member immediately panics and asks, "Who are you?" Jun Ki-young then gestures inside, smiling and squinting his eyes, and says, "I came to see the counselor, Mr. Yu Si-up. He's inside, isn't he?" The clerk stammered and said, "Wait a moment." But before she could finish, Jun Ki-young directly opened the door and entered, greeting the counselor Yu Si-up, and seeing someone playing golf in the room, he loudly asked who it was. The staff member awkwardly said, "Congressman, you have a guest." Jun Ki-young then revealed his identity. "I am Prosecutor Kim Seojin from the Southeast Branch." Yusiup, hearing this, was still focused on the golf ball under the mat and calmly said, "Prosecutor, why do you want to see me? As you can see, I am busy and cannot meet with you right now. Even if you're busy, you should still spare a little time. If you want to secure the party's nomination safely this time, I suggest you consider it." "So, does VKI Jun Sen keep a ledger of expenses?" Jun Kyung replied, "Yes, record everything including dates, amounts, and even specific banks without missing a detail." He then asked Jun Kyung if anyone else knew about this. Jun Kyung raised his glass and replied, "No one else. If there was, the prosecution would have contacted you already, not me coming here personally." Seeing Jun Kyung's expression, Yusiup thought he was showing good intentions, and then looked at him, asking, "All right, what do you want in the end?" Raising his hand to indicate, "I think I have an idea. You also want to leave Southeast Asia, right? If so, I can help." Jun Kyung then put down his glass and said, "You should go to Zeon." Yusiup then said, "Yes, I will send you to Jaeyoon." Jun Kyung then emphasized to him, "No, I will be the one to take you to Jaeyoon." Yusiup's face immediately changed after hearing that, and he clenched his fists on the armrest, speaking in a low voice. "What did you say? Who's taking whom where?" Suddenly, he burst out laughing loudly throughout the room and said, "You arrogant kid, let's see how confident you are to talk so boldly." Jun Kyung then told him that Congressman Songba from the Songba district, Ziyun, has served 4 terms and is almost a legend in that area, but it seems his love for his son is a bit too excessive, suspiciously so, as he spoke while placing a brown file bag on the table. Yu Siot immediately took out the file and opened it, then said, "This is." Jun Kyung told him that the son of the lipstick politician had written a thesis related to biotechnology and got into university through the application review system, but his math scores were terrible, and he was exempted from military service due to a herniated disc. His hobbies included extreme sports, and in the end he even passed the public recruitment exam for the new pharmaceutical sales department of TL Corporation, a very competitive place, despite being a university student with only a 2.8 GPA. In the detailed file that Jun Kyung provided, he then asked, "How did you investigate these things?" Jun Kyung just looked at Yu Siot and smiled. "Well, but more importantly, if you reveal this information, you could directly step onto the central political stage." Yu Siot, hearing your words, also looks a bit hesitant. He puts away the documents, then laughs loudly and says, "This is interesting. I realize I was unknowingly seduced by your words, but let me think it over." Jun Kyung silently thought to himself that he wouldn't take long to decide because Lord Yu Siot is a greedy man. Yu Siot then turned and asked, "All right, so what do you want in exchange?" Jun Kyung just chuckled softly and replied, "Not yet." Now he was thinking that he would turn Yu Siot into a puppet. What he wanted had already begun, as he planned to tame Senator Yuong. Yu Siot bit by bit, using the disguise wings he had given him, disguised as a control room. Yu Siot, hearing that Jun Kyung still doesn't want anything, just kept smiling and said, "I can't just be on the receiving end, so I want to give you a small farewell gift." Jun Kyung then looked at him. At this moment, the Beast of the Sea straightforwardly asked Jun Kyung how he wanted him to handle VQI Jun Seng.